maybe even like 89, 90, somewhere around there. And I was in a grocery store and I picked up a fantasy football magazine. I don't even remember what it was, but I picked it up because I've always been interested in football and stuff like that. And I picked it up, and on the back of it was learn how to play fantasy football. And how we don't have those manuals anymore. We all pretty much know how to do it. But so I picked it up, started reading about it. I'm like, wow, you could actually draft these guys and play this game. And so me, a group of friends, and some family members just got together and said, let's do it. And ever since then, been doing it.
Now, how do you find, or is there, how do you put your stats in fantasy football? They don't always equate in the real football game. How do you kind of separate those two?
That's the tricky part. I think you have to go with what makes sense to you first and foremost. So this is going to be hard to explain a little bit, but what relates to you is going to put your most passion into. So if there's, say, a dot, there's a lot of people out there that love the average depth of throw, right? I'm not one of those guys, but there are a lot of people who like it, want to get into it, do all those things. And by enjoying that sort of that category of statistics, right, you'll become more familiar with it. You'll learn how to adapt and mold it to be your own guide for your players. I use different methods and stuff like that I feel good about. Consistency, those kind of things. So those resonate with me, and I'll be, because it resonates, I'm able to adapt and look more into it.
Now, how do you, there's in most fantasy football, there's two different formats, which is the regular format and the PPR format. Can you kind of explain the difference?
Yeah, so standard leagues, that was like one of the first leagues that a lot of people got into, was standard. And so with standard leagues, basically what you just had was more based on touchdowns only. So you took away points away from, you own a running back, he catches some passes, but you're not getting any credit for that. And it's like, why am I owning this player in my fantasy league and he's catching passes, he's running? Imagine Christian McCaffrey having all these games where he's catching these passes and you're getting like 0 points for it. So what happened was they took the standard, and that was the original format, and then they said, okay, let's adapt to it. Let's give someone like Christian McCaffrey or other players who are catching the ball more points and reward them for the job that they're doing on the football field.
So is there a difference between the way that you would draft for a standard football league, fantasy football league, in difference to a PPR league?
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
Sorry to jump in. I'm a fantasy football guy. I'm dying over here. He's dead on, and I want to say so much, but I'm going to listen. Go ahead, Mike. You're the guest. Sorry.
Oh, I appreciate it. No, I want to hear you too, Demetrius. So basically, yes, and we could easily take someone who's kind of been a little bit in the publicity light a little bit right now is Damian Harris from New England. Okay, so Damian Harris himself, interestingly enough, he caught a lot of passes in college, but is not displaying that on the football field right now for New England. I don't know if that's just because of James White and they want to go to James White, but whatever. He's not catching passes. But Damian Harris could score touchdowns for you, especially if Cam Newton isn't the quarterback, because Cam Newton loves those like 1 yard plunges. But let's say Mac Jones is a quarterback; he's the hot rookie, and he's not mobile at all. So you have Damian Harris. He's going to get a lot of those goal line touches, right? He's going to get those touchdowns, but he's not going to do anything in the air. He's not going to catch passes. So Damian Harris is going to have a higher value than someone like James White, his counterpart, because James White isn't going to get in the end zone. So for standard leagues, you want Damian Harris. He's going to be a higher value. James White for PPR, higher value than Damian Harris. So it's more based on who's doing it all. You have CMC who's getting the touchdowns and the receptions. or who's scoring the touchdowns, who's not, or who's catching the ball and who's not.
Yeah.
Has fantasy football changed the emphasis of the fan base more to individual players rather than teams?
Can you repeat that question one more time for me, please?
Do you think that fantasy football has put more of the emphasis, especially on fans? Usually fans, we follow a team, we follow a division, but in fantasy football, are you more inclined to follow individual players, which give them more worth?
Yeah, and that's one of the things that one of my cardinal rules is never to do that. I think if you like, I'm a big Colts fan, right? And if I want Colts players on my team because I like the Colts, let's just say I'm in love with Jonathan Taylor, right? Well, it wouldn't be smart of me to put Jonathan Taylor ahead of Christian McCaffrey, but because I'm a big fan of Jonathan Taylor, I might just do that, which is the wrong thing to do. I always say these players are like chips, like poker chips. They only have the value that they have value to. You never want to put your heart or your feelings towards those chips because you're not going to do it right. You're always going to be biased. And once you enter a biased situation into this type of game, you're setting yourself up for failure.
But there's a guy in every league, right, Mike? There's a dude in every league who does
every
that.
league.
Yeah,
and that's a good point, Demetrius, because this is another thing I do. Find that guy, draft that player, and guess what you do? Flip that value.
Exactly.
You trade him off, and then you get more for it.
Yeah.
Demetrius, come on, man. You've been silent here for at least
I love it.
So you got some questions for Mike?
Sure.
I'm sure.
I like everything he's talking about is great. I think one of the things that I found in our league, we were kind of late to the PPR party, but there came a point where we went from 10 teams to 12 teams. And quite frankly, we did it out of necessity. There just wasn't enough talent, right? And so the guys emailed me and said, is there a way that we can create more depth in the late rounds? We're drafting bums. I mean, for lack of a better word. And so the PPR saved us. A guy like Darren Sproles was the guy. That was the dude that everybody was like, I got to find a reason to get Darren Sproles. So, so like when you are drafting, one of the things, the way our scoring system is, it's still, our league is still running back. It's a running back league, right? And we do a snake draft. So when you're that dude who's picking second, right? And then you don't pick again until 23.
Yeah.
Right. How do you handle that situation where you get to that pick and the running backs went hard, right? Mid to late first, all the best running backs. So you get there and you got a choice between the second best receiver, let's say, and like the 8th best running back. But, do you have to, for me, that's why it's always running back first round, no matter what. That's the rule I have. Now, I have never won my league, so don't listen to me. But I have running back first round no matter what. But then I picked 10th last year, and I got down to 10, and 6 running backs were gone. Yeah. And I think it was DeAndre Hopkins, if I'm not mistaken, was sitting there, and I'm thinking, D-Hop is better than I don't know who the running back was. I'm trying to remember who I took. I don't remember, but it's like the 7th or 8th rated running back. How do you do your overall evaluations, like irrespective of position, particularly when you have that run on running backs that goes, so that sort of thing?
So what I do is I have a tier sheet, and basically the tier sheets I'll have, who's the top guys. So, like the first top 5 quarterbacks, and I know you're talking about running backs here, but this is just easier for me to explain. So top 5 quarterbacks, you have, the Kyler Murray and those guys, right? And then there's a drop off. So then you go the next group and so forth and so on. So what I do, let's just say I was with you on that too in my home league where I was drafting 8th and I went with Miles Sanders because I'm sort of like with you on the same thing where you got to have a running back, especially nowadays where like you don't get a running back, you got nothing.
You're working all year to get one.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like there's nothing after this. So yeah, I do focus on running backs too. But let's just say all the guys are gone, and you're like, okay, well, Tyreek Hill's there, or like you mentioned, DeAndre Hopkins, or someone solid is there for you. and you go wide receiver, and then all the other running backs are gone. What I do is I look at my tier sheet and look at who's available and who can be sort of that second running back down the road. I will see where knowing your league is so important in this factor too, because you know the guys that are going to draft. So you don't have to press yourself and say, okay, well, I need to go to running back because I know the other teams are filled with running backs. So if you have, say, 12 teams and 8 or 9 of those teams drafted 2 running backs, you can wait for a running back. You can. So it all depends on how that draft flows for you and knowing what your guys are doing and what they've done. So I would never press myself into a position. I would always just look at what they've done, where they're going, and then make my decisions off of that. Sometimes, or what's available. Like if you don't have a running back that is a 4th round value, you definitely don't want to take him in the 2nd. Right. So grab a wide receiver, and then late in the 3rd, you can grab that running back. Make sure you have those 2 running backs that you need.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff.
Well, are there any rookie running backs that you would pick up?
Yes.
Yeah, there's quite a few. I mean, Najee Harris is definitely the guy. And the other one is Travis Etienne. I like Etienne. James Robinson. Here's a guy that was a UDFA last year, blew it up. Had the most stats for a UDFA ever, was just absolutely great. And then they're like, "Oh, thanks a lot for your, now we're gonna draft Travis Etienne, so take a back seat."
I felt like a dynasty genius when I got. I always draft wide receivers because people start reaching on running backs. So I load up on. Oh, you leave all these great wide receivers here? Yeah, go on, take these running backs that aren't that good. Well, I get all the good wide receivers. And I ended up getting Robinson in the 9th or 10th round or something. And I felt like a friggin' dynasty genius. And they screwed me.
That's got to be frustrating. If you draft James Robinson, you're riding that high, you're riding that wave, and you're like, hell yeah, I'm the man. Well, sorry, yeah, here's Travis Etienne for you. You're demoralized down. But I do think James Robinson is going to have he's going to have his value this year. I don't know about next year, but he's still going to be pretty good. Outside of that, you're looking almost like for injuries. Najee Harris, Travis Etienne, outside of that, unless you're in a dynasty league.
What do you think about Michael Carter? I mean,
that's a good point.
How long can Frank Gore keep doing this? I look at the depth chart and I think, like you mentioned, the other guys.
I've got tape with you from 2014 asking that same question.
Right.
Yeah, right.
But if you think about the other guys, Chuba Hubbard's not going to. I mean, Christian McCaffrey's going to get hurt at some point, and Hubbard will get his carries. Gainwell is behind Miles Sanders and probably Kerryon Johnson. Sermon's not going to supplant Mostert in San Francisco, but Michael Carter is competing with Frank Gore and Tevin Coleman. He might actually end up starting for the Jets.
Devontae Williams might get some touches too.
Yeah, that's another good one too. I didn't think of those, but you're absolutely right on both accounts. In fact, even Frank Gore's not even with the Jets right now. He's not even on a team, so he has less competition. So I agree. Michael Carter is someone that you could definitely get up late in the rounds, and Devontae Williams, because I don't see Melvin Gordon lasting the year.
Exactly.
So I think both of those guys, as you mentioned, Chuba Hubbard. If you own Christian McCaffrey, I think Chuba Hubbard's probably a good guy to get, to team up with each other. But outside, I think those. Trey Sermon, you mentioned Trey Sermon. That's another good. You're right. I don't see him surpassing Raheem Mostert, but Raheem Mostert and his injuries are just you might as well count on that happening.
Yep.
Don, do you get into this fantasy football, or are you strictly old school?
I'm going to admit something. I've never participated in fantasy football.
We're changing that this year. I'm adding a spot into my league, and it's got Hayes all over it.
You got it.
I'm texting everybody right now.
Well, a few years ago, I did act as a consultant. Back when Priest Holmes was playing, I told my friend that to go with Priest Holmes, but that's been my experience with fantasy. I know a lot of my coaching buddies, they do fantasy, and You know, I do keep up with the stats in the papers to see who's winning and all that. But personally, I just really don't have time for it. But Demetrius, I'll make time for you, I guess.
Yes.
There you
Open
go.
up a spot. You're in.
Don doesn't have time for football. I mean, you know,
Not fantasy football. If somebody's really strapping up those chin straps and going out hitting, Don Hayes is right there.
See, what blew my mind was Demetrius complaining about being in a 12-team league. Come play where I play, son. I played 20 teams and up.
Woo! There just isn't enough talent for that. I don't know how.
Oh, you say that.
No,
this makes you really dig.
Okay. I guess.
I tell you what, I would like if they did a fantasy for like Division I college football.
Yeah. Which
you can do.
it's been discussed. I think it exists.
It does. I think it started last year.
Come join me. I'm in a couple of college football fantasy leagues.
Because I'd be throwing money on the Bijan Robinson at Texas, Spencer Rattler.
Mike, that's our all Texas college football expert down there. In case you didn't know, not just college, high school football. Don Hayes will school you on anybody down there.
But whoever the starting wide receivers are for Alabama, throw them in there. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
I'm in a couple leagues where we draft high school players right now.
There you go.
What?
There you go.
I'm drafting juniors. Right now.
Wow.
Now, the only danger is that, like, probably about 20-something% of those kids are going to do something else with their lives, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Completely different.
Yeah, there's no way. I mean, we're like, so the startup I'm in, we're doing 85 rounds, and it's.
See, Demetrius, come on, get ready.
I apologize. I am so ashamed right now.
So
Demetrius, I'm with you, Demetrius.
I didn't know.
It's a whole
It's time
other
to start
layer.
breaking out tape of ninth graders, Demetrius. Come on.
I just call Mike. I'm gonna bring out tape. Mike's gonna start filling up my inbox as soon as the podcast is over.
I'll definitely help you out for sure. I'll be your side for sure.
Look at this 13-year-old edge rusher out in West Virginia.
Yeah. He's awesome, man. Runs a 4.40.
Come on, Don. Don. Give us one. I
up
know there's one in Texas. Give us one.
So what we'll do, we'll bring up the Friday Night Tykes, those guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Pop Warner action.
Yes.
Did you see the last episode? That quarterback with that cannon of
Nice.
Mike, one thing that you will find out if you stick around this show, we are a stickler for time. We make sure
that is absolutely an untrue statement. You've never heard a more untrue statement. I think Mr. King wants to be. Bill and I just don't care. We just don't care.
That's fake news, dude.
Right. I know Don is great. Don will give you a nice, clear, concise answer. Keep it in or around 30 seconds, 40 seconds. Yep. Bill will tell you a story about the kid's aunt and the college she went to. And I will just jump down a rabbit hole about the Lions for no apparent reason. So that's how this actually works.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun.
Blast.
That's the one thing that we do. But couple interesting wide receiving cores. Which one would you rank the highest if you were picking your team? Titans or who was the Ravens?
Ravens. Yeah.
Oh, I definitely have to go the Titans on that one.
Yeah, you did.
I have a lot of hope for Rashad Bateman. I think Rashad Bateman is probably one of the, if not the best route runner in this class that's coming out. I enjoy watching him play. He's amazing. But Sammy Watkins, Marquise Holloway Brown. So when you have Julio Jones, who's definitely a Hall of Famer as soon as he retires 5 years later, and then you have A.J. Brown, who, if he continues to do what he does on the field, very much will be in the talks of Hall of Fame. I don't think you can debate that with.
I know we were talking a lot about running backs, but at what point do you pick up a quarterback, say a Patrick Mahomes or
That's a great question.
The Bills quarterback? When
Josh
is a
Allen.
good time?
So, two things. You have to look sort of at the scoring of the league. Now, a 6-point, which is sort of dying out now, 6-point quarterback league for touchdowns or 4-point quarterback league for touchdowns.
Right.
If it's 6 points, then it's definitely heavy on quarterback. So you want to get someone maybe in the second round. Some are going in the first, but definitely in the first or second round. If it's a 4-point, you can wait. Fifth round, sixth round, somewhere around there would probably be a good one. Or go the next round after, or go some couple picks down. If you're in a 4-point quarterback league and it's the 5th round, and someone say drafts Patrick Mahomes with their, say, the 4th pick, the 4th round of the 5th pick, they go Patrick Mahomes. That's going to sort of start pushing people to get the quarterback. So if you want someone like Josh Allen, you might want to pull that trigger, anywhere between the 5th round or later that 4th round if you're still up to pick.
Is there a reason to take more than 2 quarterbacks?
I'm sorry?
It's a 2-quarterback league.
Yeah, right. That's the only reason.
Yeah, that's basically it. Yeah, exactly. If it's just a 1-quarterback league, you get your big guy, and then, or you get two middle guys. You get like Carson Wentz and I don't know,
Derek Carr
or Derek Carr, or you get those kind of middle guys. But if you get your Josh Allen or your Patrick Mahomes in a 1-quarterback league, just write it off in the sunset.
And realistically, you don't spend a lot of capital on the backup, because in the real world, that dude should only play 1 week. Well, now I guess it's 2 weeks, the bye weeks, right?
Yeah,
that could get hurt, but in your perfect world, because you can't draft, because you don't know when a guy's going to get hurt, right? But my philosophy on quarterbacks actually is there's a tier. To me, there's 2 or 3 guys in this elite tier that I might take in the 3rd. If those guys get by me, I think I took my quarterback last year in the 7th, and of course it was Matthew Stafford, but that just happened to be how that worked out. But if I don't get one of those top tier guys, and I think it was simply Mahomes, Rodgers, I feel like it was somebody else who I can't remember right now. Maybe it was Josh Allen. I don't think
Dak Prescott was probably in there.
Exactly,
Kyler Murray, those guys. And you're right. Those guys, let's just say, they just get gobbled up really quick, and so you just wait. I think Matthew Stafford, it didn't turn out that way, but Matthew Stafford was a fine pick. He was coming off, where he was injured in week 8, missed the last 8 weeks, but he was on pace for 50 touchdowns and 5,000 yards.
His best season before he got hurt. Yeah.
Yeah, so when you probably got him heck of late, why not, right?
Right.
And so I don't think it turned out to be a bad pick, but it doesn't mean that it was a bad pick at the time.
No.
So yeah, I'm with you. You just sort of just wait around and get the guy that you want, and that's sort of like with the tight ends this year too. It's the same way where you have top 5 guys. After that, whatever, throw a dart, whatever lands on that name, then that's the guy you get. Because
there's about 10 or 12 dudes that are fantasy-wise all the same. The gap between them is nothing. When you look at it realistically, all those dudes are the same, so it really doesn't matter.
Right, exactly. In fact, we're calling it the glob. So
the glob is a good
it's just, it doesn't matter after those 5 guys.
Now, it used to be back when I first started playing fantasy football that it was almost a given that your kicker would be the last pick. Now it seems to have changed to defenses. What do you contribute that to?
So what ends up happening with kickers and defenses is that there's not much separation as far as, say, the number 1 defense and the number 10 defense. You're looking probably at 5 points, 10 points on average. So it's a really just squished field between a 1 and a 10. And so if you're taking a defense, say, in the 14th round, and then someone else is taking, the 7th defense in the 18th round, where, you have all those 4 players, right, in those rounds. Well, in the 18th round, you're taking the same defense as the guy that took it in the 14th round.
Yep.
So why should I take it so much earlier and waste the pick on the 14th round for a defense? And that's the same way with kickers. They're just all sort of just the same kind of guy. So what I like to do is, because a lot of run tight ends, a lot of defenses and kickers are going in the last rounds, like say you're 16 rounds. They'll go 15 and 16. And so what I like to do is I jump ahead. I go 14 and 15 while everybody else is doing 15 and 16 or 13 and 14 and getting the top defense and top kicker, because everybody else is waiting till the end of the draft. So I get my 2 guys, and then while they're drafting kickers and defenses because they got to fill that slot, then I go, the rest of the pool is mine. I can do whatever I wish with it.
Exactly.
Demetrius, any more questions for Mike?
No, I think we appreciate you joining us. It's good stuff.
Oh, thank you.
I think my one last question is, where do you put Stafford with the Rams? I'm a Lions fan, and he is one of the few guys that I still love after he left my team. And I'm wondering how you rank him in the move.
So I do like him awful lot. I liked him last year too. So I don't know how you want to go with that, but I like him a lot better. I think anywhere between 8 and 12 is your guy. I think he's just one of those where he's not going to add any value on the ground. So he's not going to run the ball at all, right? But in that Rams offense, he has so many playmakers, more than he's ever had in Detroit. As far as individuals, I mean, he had greats like Megatron, and Kenny Golladay was pretty good, but as many, he has Robert Woods, he has Cooper Kupp, he has a lot more weapons, Cam Akers, those kind of things. So he has a lot more of those guys, and plus Sean McVay's offense is built for Matt Stafford.
That's what I think.
And I like him quite a bit. I think the later you can get him, the better. I think he's not going to finish anything lower than a QB 12. So QB 10, QB 8, wherever you feel comfortable, wherever you want him because you want him, then I would definitely start shopping probably QB 10 because that's probably no one's going to want him as that early because he's had 2 bad years in a row now, one with the injury, and then last year wasn't so great either. So I think you can wait on him just based on that, but you're going to reap all that ROI because he is going to finish anywhere between QB and 8 and QB 10. So anytime you can get him after QB 10, better off you're going to be.
Yeah, I think Ranger Hayes likes him though.
Yeah. I apologize.
No, that's the dog, Mike. That's the dog.
I love the dog.
Yeah, my son opened up the garage and it spooked him, and so
Bill, anything for
Mike's most certainly, yes. So this is my second foray back into keeper and dynasty. So I did dynasty a few years back and it was terrible. And I've spent the last few years in the lab, working on everything, crunching numbers and, trying to get my weight up. So I have one, I'm going to start with Michael Pittman Jr. I think I like him too much, but I want your read on him because I think I may be overvaluing him. Where do you see Michael Pittman Jr. in terms of where one should look to go after him, and what do you think he's going to do this year?
That Colts offense. So basically, the Colts offense is all going to be predicated around Jonathan Taylor and Marlon Mack to some degree, and obviously Nyheim Hines is going to get a lot of receptions out of the backfield. Of course, Michael Pittman is a lot better for dynasty value than he is right now. But it's going to be interesting to see. I'm sort of hesitant because the big factor for me is what are they going to do with T.Y. Hilton come next year?
Right.
And without really knowing that, I think he'll be gone. But because he's only signed for a year, so let's just say he is, and that's probably what the situation is. Are they going to put Michael Pittman in the slot because that's where T.Y. Hilton's going to be right now. So if they put Michael Pittman in the slot, then Carson Wentz and Pittman are going to be the duo.
Yep.
If they go and get someone and put him in the slot, or if they decide Paris Campbell is more dynamic in the slot, then not so much. So Pittman is definitely one of those guys you can get late in startups and those kind of things. So I would just sort of monitor his ADP and then sort of just get him where you can. They spread that ball around. They're going to be spreading that ball around all around. I don't know the value. He's much more better if he was on a offense that passes the ball a lot and uses two receivers, sort of maybe like the Atlanta Falcons last year where you had Calvin Ridley and Julio Jones. And
or the Vikings.
Or the Vikings, or those kind of things. But because you're on a running team and you're spreading the ball among three receivers at any given moment, that volume is just not there. So he's a much better player. He's just not the volume guy, and that's going to kill his value.
Right. My last question is about the Rams tight ends, which is not quite as bad as the New England Patriots running back situation, but it's frustrating at times. Are the Rams tight ends simply to be avoided, or is there one that you think emerges as the definite guy?
Well, the only one, Gerald Everett's gone, so
right.
it's going to be Tyler Higbee there. I think when you have, I think that I like Matthew Stafford. As I mentioned many times. But Matthew Stafford loves his tight end, and I think Higbee will have some good value. He's one of those guys that you could probably in the glove, and get whenever you want to. Yeah. But it's just really going to be him as the tight end guy. So Everett is gone, so that opens up some volume for him.
I'm hoping you are right.
Me too. I like Higbee.
Mike, we're going to do an NFL section here if you want to stick around a little bit.
Yes, sir. As long as you want me to be around, I'll definitely be around. I'm enjoying this company, so yeah, I'm all up for whatever you guys need.
Well, let's start a little bit. Let's start with Demetrius. Demetrius, one of the first articles I came across this morning, Mr. Barry Sanders says the Lions feel different. What does that mean?
Barry would know. He's been around the organization for 30 years. I can tell you what the difference is. And it's not really fun or cool for fans to love on owners, but her name is Sheila Ford Hamp, and it is different. Sheila is running the organization differently than her dad and her mom. And her dad, William Clay Ford, ran the organization for 50 years, probably 40 years. And her mom's running for the last 8. And everything Sheila's done since she took over. It really started 2 days after Thanksgiving when she fired Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia together. She did it with class in a really nice Zoom call. But she said in that Zoom call 6 to 10 times the word collaboration. Collaboration. She kept saying, we're going to do everything as a group. And then she assembled this advisory board with really smart people like Rod Graves and Chris Spielman, and Barry Sanders was on that group. And they selected a really good GM in Brad Holmes. They identified who they want to be as a team, what the culture wants to be. And then they targeted Dan Campbell because they like him, right? I don't know. He's going to have to earn it from me. I love Brad. Everything Brad Holmes has done, right? When they come in and they talk to Stafford and he wants to be traded, okay. It's a tough thing to do in this city because they love the guy. They handled it with class and dignity. Then they executed one of the best trades ever. I'm sorry. History is going to talk about that trade. We got 2 number 1s coming up, plus we got a 3, and we got Jared Goff, and I'm pro Goff. So, and then they had really good free agent signings, and then they nailed the draft. I mean, I just think that it started with Sheila, and everything they've done since then has been consistent with the strategy she laid out. So that's what's different. The Millen era was Millen not listening to scouts and picking receivers that he picked up their name off the floor on a napkin or something, right? It's different. There's a really smart group of people, and they've got Ray Agnew in that room. They've got John Dorsey in that room. Brad Holmes is super smart dude. He understands how to put together draft boards. They nailed the draft. They were smart, physically smart. Tyrell Williams, they signed to a 1-year deal. They signed Perriman. They re-signed Romeo Okwara to a really comfortable 3-year deal. They were really smart in rebuilding this team. So they know where they are. They're being everything they've done since 2 days after Thanksgiving. I give a check plus. I mean, they're rebuilding that defense and the line with these 2 stud defensive tackles. They got Brockers and a steal of a trade. So everything they're doing feels like it is consistent with a strategy that starts with Sheila. And I think Barry's been around for the whole thing. And that's what he's saying. It's like there is a plan, there's a strategy, and we're being really, really smart with everything we do. So I agree with him, obviously, as much as I miss number 9, that they handled that well. They've done everything well. I mean, you guys have heard, I've talked about it. I love where they are in their trajectory. Awesome. 2-1s next year, 2-1s the year after that. They're in a great spot. And I think started with Sheila right down the line.
Yeah. When people think that officially the end is nigh is when you have that Browns-Lions Super Bowl in 2020. So people will say, oh, the 7th seal must be breaking.
It has broken.
I mean, I'm half joking, but 2 of the franchises that people are used to sort of saying, do you want to see a dead body?
Right.
And now they're doing pretty much everything right. I mean, like you could joke or whatever, but as you just pointed out, the Lions, which used to be sort of the, hey, here's how you don't run a front office.
Exactly.
And now, I mean, Brad Holmes, he would have been. I don't think they have a executive of the year. Or do they have an executive of the year in the NFL? But he would have been a nominee. Like I would have nominated because I think, as Dimitri said, killed it. And another young black GM. In fact, the young black GMs, because Miami's young black GM is killing it too.
Cleveland.
Hey, everybody, get yourself a young black GM because Brad Holmes and Andrew Berry are all kicking ass.
Yeah,
very true. And then you go back to Cleveland's GM and Ozzie Newsome, and he was sort of the guy that really started to showcase his skills. So you can even go to Ozzie Newsome as well.
No, Ozzie wrote the blueprint.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right.
Exactly.
And then handed it to Eric DaCosta. So, I mean, the Ravens still have Ozzie's fingerprints all over.
Yeah.
He's officially emeritus or whatever they call him now, but he still shows up at all-star games. It's like, hey, Ozzie, what the hell's Ozzie?
They're going to name a building on that campus after Ozzie Newsome at some point.
And they should.
Right.
They should. Because without Ozzie Newsome, they are not the Ravens as we know them. But yeah, I mean, I'm like I said, I'm only half kidding. I really think the Lions take a little bit of a move up and then a big old move up. I think the year after next is the year to get super excited about.
I already told you guys, 2023 SPORTSKRIB, I'm gonna be a jerk. You might not even want me back. I'm gonna be hard to deal with in 23. It's gonna be rough. Don Hayes is gonna be like, look, I'm not showing up if that guy. I got a game.
Don, what do you think about those Lions, man? I mean, it's been a while. I mean, you probably had hair back then.
I did. The Lions, and Demetrius point out, they're on the upswing. They kind of remind me of, and I'm going to piss you off, James, but the Cleveland Browns. They were the place where people went to die and all that, and then they started actually making good choices, and they won what year? One year they won like 2 games, and then next year they won like 5 games, and then they're running 8 games. So it's a
progression.
Trajectory's up.
Yeah.
So kudos to the Lions. Hey, my dad was always a Detroit fan, so I can cheer for Detroit. That's no problem.
We got that pipeline to Highland Park High School, man. We got a connection down there. We love it.
Hey, Highland Park. That's I don't know if y'all know much about Texas football, but Highland Park's a powerhouse. They have been since the 1930s. And it's probably one of the more. It's a lot of rich people, a lot of wealth.
Yes, a lot of rich people. Yes.
Fair to say the 2 greatest players in the history of Highland Park High School both played quarterback for the Detroit Lions.
Yeah.
Yep.
Nice. Nice.
Yes. Doak Walker came out of there, and as you mentioned, the coach, one of the fathers of spread offense, right? I mean, Texas, amongst other things, right, is where Coach Leo Dutchmeyer first began to develop that sort of quick timing passing that later became the West Coast offense. So he still was doing it out of, I guess, not only a single wing, I guess a double wing is really what he would, a modified double wing is really what Dutch Meyer was running when he had Sammy Baugh and Davey O'Brien. But
there's your Bill Carroll moment, Mike. There's your Bill Carroll moment. There it is. It was 35, 40 minutes, and you got it. There it is.
Here it is.
We love it. We love it.
But you talk about Russell's Runts, right? The Mississippi Boys Home. He was the coach of that team and Highland Park at the same time. So he had two powerhouse. One's not so much a powerhouse. He was sort of doing with mirrors at Masonic Boys Home because those kids were literally undernourished. Literally. I mean, when you say playing hungry, I wish those kids were hungry. They were half starved. But he was still beating really good programs with those with like 14 underfed kids. I'm not even joking, I mean, like
it's still funny. I'm sorry, it's still funny.
He had like 14 little 118, 120 something pound kids, mad at the world, luckily, and took coaching. And then he had a very different situation at Highland Park High School, as was pointed out by Don, where it's the best and the brightest and this and that, but he was winning in both situations at the same time. What an absolute genius! There should be a movie made about what he's doing, coaching on both sides of the tracks.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and that I think you hit on it too. When you're successful in both areas, in both you're definitely leading and understanding how different each side is. Using their relating to that side and relating to the other side, and getting the most out of each side is tremendous leadership, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's one of the great stories in the history of college. Well, he coached some in college too, but in the history of football, I guess. Period. But yeah, he was mostly a high school coach. He coached a little bit. Don, was it TCU? Was it SMU?
Well, he was head coach at SMU for a few years.
It was SMU. Thank you, SMU. Yeah.
I think during World War II.
Yep. And then Bill Meeks replaced him, I think. Because it was Coach Meeks. It was Coach Meeks who, speaking of awesome playbooks, if you're like a connoisseur of playbooks,
who's not, right?
Here we go. But Coach Meeks, when he was at SMU, said to Don Meredith, because he had offers from lots of places, he said, "You're going to throw the ball here more in practice than you will in 4 years in any other school in the state of Texas." Wow. And he was right. But I mean, speaking of offensive innovators, Coach Meeks is really, really super underrated, and I'm going to stop talking. If you're a fan of offensive playbooks, check out those Coach Meeks playbooks from the late 1950s.
Mike, it's kind of interesting that you came on tonight and that you're a Colts fan, because I didn't really know that. But I have a question for you. Carson Wentz has came out with a statement, and he says that he feels, how did he put it? He has a new passion in Indy. You believe it or not?
I do. I really do. I think most of the reason for that is because Frank Reich was the offensive coordinators at the Eagles when Carson Wentz was successful, when he had that 2017 year where he was almost the MVP and in the talks of being the MVP that year until he tore his ACL. So where he was successful was with Frank Reich. Now he comes over to Indianapolis, and guess who's there? Frank Reich. He's the head coach. So I think that camaraderie is very important for both coach and player. And I think not Frank Reich, but Carson Wentz feels reborn again. Like, I get this. We are together. We are very good as a group, and because he has that, he feels all those feelings over again. Like, especially after last year and that just disastrous of a year for both the Eagles and for Carson Wentz. I think this is almost a homecoming for him.
I think this is classic code speak is what it is. And I'll decode it quickly, then I'll give it to you, Bill. 3 points. Code 1, I hate Doug Peterson. I love Frank Reich. Right? That's your first coded message. Coded message number 2 is the people of Indianapolis, Indiana are much, much nicer than the people of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And third, and most importantly, this is a really good football team, guys. We are Super Bowl caliber, and there is nothing going on over in Philadelphia. I think he was being nice. New passion means screw you, Doug Peterson. and I love the city of Indianapolis, and this is a really good team. And he's right on all 3 counts, by the way.
That is one way I didn't look at it, but that's a way that I cannot disagree with you whatsoever. I think you very well could see in all of those points that the way he felt, especially in Philadelphia, especially Doug Peterson, especially in that Philadelphia area where it's hard knocks, man. You either you do it or you don't. There is no give in between at all. So yeah, I 100% believe that coded message is very much so. Yeah.
Don, what's your thoughts on Carson Wentz and the Colts?
I think Carson Wentz will be my first-round draft pick when I do fantasy draft. I'm kidding. But I do believe that a change of scenery is always good. He's kind of worn out his welcome in Philadelphia. Maybe not the things that are his fault. You had these nagging injuries and all that. But sometimes you just need a change of scenery, get a fresh start. I think we've seen players do that before. We saw Drew Brees, make that transition from San Diego to New Orleans. So, I mean, there is a history there. I think Carson Wentz, I don't know he's going to be all pro or anything. He may not even make the playoffs, but I think he will have a major success with the Colts than he did in last few years in Philly. I mean, it can't get worse, right?
No, I don't think they have a jail in Indianapolis.
Under the stadium.
Under the stadium. Bill.
Well, okay, so Demetrius, of course, was very smart to get in when he did. That was brilliant strategy there. But what I will say is, I think there's some cultural, as you said, some cultural stuff in there. Football stuff too, but some cultural stuff. So he's born, but he's born in Raleigh, North Carolina, but grows up, at 3 they move, to the Dakotas, and he grows up in a place where, how do I put this? I mean, it couldn't be much less like Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where he grows up, what he's used to. He's used to, going to the store to buy like doe urine. You know what I mean? Like, that's not Philadelphia. Like that's not something you do in Philadelphia, right? I mean, the kid grew up in, the Great Plains. He's used to ATVing and, he's got turkey calls and stuff. So it was a bit of a shock to, I think, a culture shock. But having success initially took away some of that culture shock. And when the success was no longer there, the culture shock was back, baby, in full force with like all that pent up momentum that was sort of dissipated by the early success. But as soon as that success dissipated, boom. I don't think I'm telling anyone anything. I was born in Philadelphia. I'll put that in as a caveat, in Hahnemann Hospital. So I don't think I'm telling you things they don't know. And Philadelphia is a challenging place to be a sports figure, particularly if you are a prominent sports figure. It can go one of 2 ways. Either you're going to be amazing and beloved, like a handful of guys I can name. Wilt, as long as he was alive, still got love. Even when he went other places, he was still beloved there. They eventually came around kind of on some other guys. Iverson is still beloved there, but it's a short list. Like if you there's not a bunch of guys. I mean, mostly some basketball guys get love there, but
Dr. J.
Yeah.
For football guys, man, it's tough. I'm trying to think who's a really beloved football.
I think they still like Donovan McNabb. I do.
Oh, that's probably a good one.
They eventually came around on Donovan. They didn't like him much at first, and then
that's true.
And towards the end, they didn't like him. But
he went to Washington at the end. That was a bad idea to go.
Yeah,
there.
That was a real bad.
Right. Yeah. And so there was some good, like in the middle, there was like they were not sold on him initially, as you might remember, and then on the end it was ugly. But in the middle, you're right. There was some nice stuff for him there. But I mean, he's not a beloved figure exactly, but they came around on him. It's been hard for players since 1960.
Not really.
So
you're
right. Kelsey, I think, is kind of a beloved figure.
Yeah.
But it's a short list. And he stopped being beloved very quickly after being beloved, right? It happened. I don't think he knew how quickly it could happen. I think he was a little bit caught off guard by how quickly he went from being everybody's favorite to almost nobody's favorite. I happened really fast, right? It's like, man, you guys loved me like it seemed like 4 or 5 months ago. Why? What's happened? And he's once again, this isn't a kid from the mean streets of anywhere, right? He's the streets where he's from. So it's
that rough neighborhood in Grand Forks, North Dakota.
That's what I'm saying, right? You know what I'm saying, right? So not that Indianapolis is, it's not like it's a wide spot in the road, but it's very different from Philadelphia.
Very different.
Press corps is radically different from what
you can buy deer urine in Indianapolis for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So yes, he's closer in many ways to what feels comfortable to him. Yeah. His coaching situation is more comfortable. As I pointed out, his supporting cast situation is more comfortable. But culturally, it's way more comfortable.
Yes.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
Don, what is going on down there in Texas? Let's see. We have the Cowboys, which would, I think, consider a good season, 8 and 9. You have.
I love your optimism. Your optimism is
8 and 1 is actually more accurate.
You have the Texans that'll probably be a 17-game season, 2-15. So what's happening down there, man?
Well, first of all, we'll go and talk about the Cowboys and the stuff they got going on. I thought the Cowboys did better than I thought they would in the draft. They went out and got their guys on defense they needed. It's all going to depend on, if Dak Prescott can come back from his that injury. I think he can because he's young. His body is probably healing up. We haven't had a word from the mini camps or anything like that. But backing him up, I mean, they don't really have a solid backup. I mean, they have some guy named Ben DiNucci and
exactly.
James Madison, baby.
Garrett Gilbert, former Longhorn SMU guy. But he's not going to be a starter.
Did we lose Mr. Hayes? No, he was just getting into killing the Cowboys. Oh no. I was hoping we would get him back. We might have lost him though, right?
I think Don froze up on us with
quickly, my little comment on Dallas, if I can, until he gets back. I'm worried that those 3 contracts are eventually going to limit their ability to have depth on that roster. They're either going to have to move Cooper or I mean, maybe Zeke, but I don't know that you move Zeke. But he's a running back, and people get rid of running backs a year early rather than a year late. But between Dak, Zeke, and Amari Cooper, that is eating up a huge chunk of their salary cap. And I think it's with each year, it's going to limit their ability to sign free agents and keep their own guys.
I think Cooper is in his last year.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I believe.
So
I'm not.
if Cooper's contract comes off the books, they might be okay.
There's another year, but it's voidable or whatever it is.
Okay.
So it's an imaginary year, but it's on paper, but it's not.
Yeah,
they can get out from under.
Right.
Helps a little.
Right.
It doesn't completely solve their problem.
Well, Dak and Zeke are still chewing up a ton, right? As far as the Texans, I mean, we can talk
real
about
issue. I mean, let's be honest. Zeke's the real issue.
Zeke is real.
Yeah, Dak is getting top tier starter money in the NFL. That's just how that works nowadays. Yep. And Amari Cooper is slightly overpaid, but it's not crazy. Zeke's the problem.
Right.
Unless something radically changes, he's a guy who looks like he's basically becoming less and less productive incrementally each season.
He's already
the money is
right.
I'm not saying you should never pay running backs because there are running backs that deserve to be paid.
Well, I'll say that you should never pay running backs.
Well, okay,
I will say it for you.
You should never pay them like
never
that.
pay a running back. Right.
You should never pay them like that. I guess is what I'm saying. Yeah.
Don, you're back. So let's get you in there before they run over all your points here.
We've already took care of all that down.
Sorry about that. My computer started a little loading, whatever it's called. It's like, what the hell?
Buffering.
Yeah, buffering. That's what they call it. So, but talking about the Cowboys, it all depends on if Dak can come back from his grievous injury. Ezekiel late in the year last year started turning the ball over a little bit, which is a big concern. I do like the Cowboys. I think they have pretty good depth at running back, but of course they got receivers out the ass. But if you don't have the offensive line to block for them or quarterback getting the ball, it doesn't matter that you have the wide receivers you have. Defensively, I think the Cowboys did a lot of work to bolster their linebackers and secondary, so that's always a good thing. You go to the Titans.
The Texans.
I'm sorry, Texans. At least I didn't say Oilers, right? So the Texans are another one of those teams that it's kind of erase the board and start over.
Yeah.
Things will get a lot worse if they get better in Houston. I mean, it's a shit show to put it mildly.
So and by the way, Mike, after 9 o'clock Central, it turns into SPORTSKRIB After Dark. The language gets a little juicier. Don had his energy drink a little while ago, and now it's about to get real. Crib After Dark.
Mike, we talked about running back values. Where do you place Ezekiel Elliott?
Right now, I have him in PPR leagues. I have him at RB7. So 6 out of the running backs I have ahead of him at this point. I think what Don was saying was pretty much on, and as Demetrius was leading to as well, is he's on his. I think he's on the downhill of this cliff. He's not running down the hill, but he's on the other side of the mountain for sure. So I have my RB7.
So can I get a follow-up on that? Who is the highest rated fantasy player Dallas has? Amari Cooper?
I would say
that'd be that. Right?
Amari Cooper would be, but I like CeeDee Lamb better than Amari Cooper.
Okay.
Fair enough. I like that.
And then Dak Prescott, it was probably, if you just look at like where they're being selected. So Dak Prescott would be at 5, or Cooper would be like at 15. CeeDee Lamb's like at 20. So if you're looking at just pure numbers, that's where I pretty much have them.
Okay, it sounds. Let's kind of move on here. Let's see. We got Demetrius. We got Bill, Justin Fields, Andy Dalton, Allen Robinson. What do you expect from the Bears?
Well, so the Bears have essentially been running on a hamster wheel for several years, as many people have already noticed. They will pick up good players, and sometimes even great players, and manage to, for however, one way or another, manage to somehow waste their best years. Allen Robinson is that poor man. He must wonder what he did in
previous life.
Look at the list of quarterbacks that guy's had in his life, right? So at some point, things will get better for Allen Robinson. Hold on, Allen. It'll get better. AR, hold on, baby. At some point, as you said before, a couple of weeks ago, that Justin Fields is going to be the quarterback at some point. The only question is when, and the answer, of course, is all dependent on how well the Red Rifle plays. If anyone plays the best football of his life, I mean, Scott Farkas could hold him off until maybe even after the bye week. My prediction is sometime around the bye week they make the move. And Justin Fields is a very mature young man. For those who haven't had a chance to sort of watch him comport himself, it's not surprising, right? He's been just being discussed since he was about 13 years old. And people are talking about he might be the second best quarterback in the country, for his age, since that age. And the other guy was like 60 miles up the road, right? So he and Trevor Lawrence have had to hear about each other since they were both 8th graders. And, here they are now. But I think he'll be ready when the time comes. I think they'll scale back, which is what they often do with young quarterbacks, the playbook a little bit when he does eventually take over. But he's going to give you dimensions. I mean, he is an elite level athlete, the quarterback position, which, what's the old joke, the poor man's check down, right? I mean, when you don't always know where to go with the ball, you've already got the ball in your hands, right? So that you got that, and he's a powerful, fast athlete. He can make things happen. I'm more concerned about the defense getting a little older. I think the offense will either look good under Andy Dalton or it'll stop being Andy Dalton's offense. So one way or the other, that will be resolved. I think I'm worried a little bit about some of the best players on the defense. I think Mack will still be good. I think Akeem Hicks is starting to get those little nicks that you start to as you get to a certain point in your career where, your body – I mean, what's the old thing? Like when you first enter the league, you feel good pretty much all the time. Then about 5 years in, you have a few bad days, but you start to feel good about Wednesday. And towards the back part of your career, it's like you feel bad pretty much all the time. And I don't think people underestimate how big a part of their everything they do on defense Akeem Hicks is. So if he still manages to play at a top tier defensive tackle level, that'll still be a good defense. I'm not wild about their secondary as a whole. They have a couple of good pieces, but the way the league is now, you can't just have a couple of good pieces, right? Because whoever the guy who isn't that good, they're going to find that guy. They're going to find him over and over and over again. You can have 3 or even 4 really good defensive backs and just one bad one. And as soon as that bad one's on the field, I mean, Tom Brady's world famous for this, right? As soon as he sees that guy, he doesn't, wait, that guy's on the field? Forget the play I called. No, we're going at that sucker, right? And so I think they need to get deeper in the secondary. I just worry a little bit about that. Their running game should improve, at least in part because of the infusion of Justin Fields, but also I think they're going to commit to the run more this year. Once again, at least in part because of Fields, but also because I don't think you want anyone throwing the ball 45 times a game either. So if you're a fan of drafting Bears running backs, which I don't really recommend, but if you are a person who wants to do that anyway, I think you'll get a little more out of the Bears running backs this year than you did last year.
Don, your take on the Bears?
Oh, I think the Bears are another team that I like the trajectory. I believe that they're probably a year or two away, kind of like maybe we talk about Detroit. I think Detroit's in a better shape than the Bears, but I like Chicago. I think there's a vibe there that I think the city can get around as long as they stay at Soldier Field. Because they've been talking about maybe relocating, but I think that's just bluster.
Demetrius.
I don't like Chicago, mostly because they're in a division with Detroit. I don't have any viable reasons other than that one. I'm going to be honest. We had them beat twice last year and gave both those games away. The opener on a drop touchdown. All right, I'm not going to do that. Sorry. I'm not going to break down both Lions-Bears games from last year as badly as I want. I think Bill had a very, very hidden point. I think their whole Red Rifle Justin Fields thing will work itself out. It always does. The better quarterback gets on the field. I have concerns about that defense. I have concerns about that defense because they're going to get old fast. It's just going to be all of a sudden, wow, the Bears defense isn't what it used to be. And that's the real concern. And I think that once it starts going downhill, it's going to go downhill quick. If you can put up points, their offense isn't good enough to win shootouts. So they have to play well on defense. They have to generate pressure on the quarterback, and they have to make guys uncomfortable. To Mike's point earlier in the show about Matthew Stafford, 2 of the most uncomfortable games, although statistically they weren't horrible, were against the Bears because they rush from many angles and they make quarterbacks uncomfortable. If they cease to be able to do that, whether it's because Hicks gets injured, or Khalil Mack gets injured, or some reason one of their corners goes down or something, they become imminently beatable, like real fast. So I'm worried about their defense. That's the only. I really just don't want them to be good because I'm a Lions fan. And that's just how this whole thing works. So those are the rules.
Mike, any fantasy value in the Bears?
Yeah, of course. A-Rob is always fantasy. As Bill was pointing out, it doesn't matter what quarterback he has. He's going to finish in the top 10. Now he has the best quarterback he's ever had in his entire career, Andy Dalton. So
Did you see Don's eyes? Did you guys see Don's face?
Priceless.
I think Darnell Mooney is promising.
Yes.
So you can get him late in the draft. It's those guys in the Fields. It just depends on how many games Fields plays. I'm projecting him to come in about week 4. So I don't know if he's draftable by then, but he's someone definitely in a keeper league. That you might want to project, of course, but and maybe a dart throw, last pick, and you're like, I need a backup quarterback, so Fields, kind of thing.
Is Montgomery a legitimate second running back or RB2?
I think he's legitimate RB2 for sure. He's another one that sort of, as we were talking about Travis Etienne, someone that really exploited the situation that he was in when Tariq Cohen went down,
right? And
they threw to him quite a bit, and that's why he went from like an RB 22 to finishing as an RB4 on the season.
Wow.
And because he can catch the ball, they just, when you have Tariq Cohen there, now you have Damian Williams there. It's just, but I do believe, late in RB 22 range, sure.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Bill, since we have a great love for the secondary, I'm going to start this out with you because the Chargers are getting Derwin James back in the secondary. How much better does that make that Chargers defense?
Much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Vastly.
All his best adjectives are going to come out now.
A squidillion. A metric ton. I mean, what are we measuring exactly? Derwin James is one of the best football players in the world. I don't know how else to put it. If you lined him up, at the wide 9 technique, he could get you 7.5 to 8 sacks. If you played him at linebacker, he could do that. If you played him at corner, he can do that. I mean, if you ever watched him play corner in practice, it's like, oh my God, is that young Patrick Peterson? I mean, he's a ludicrously good football player. He could play running back probably. I mean, he is really, 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 really good at football, just in general. So getting him back, if you're a defensive coordinator and you're getting him back, it's like, oh, I've just become a much better defensive coordinator. Because all those things that you wanted to do, but you were afraid to do, you can now do them again. Because you have a guy who is both Cam Chancellor and Earl Thomas. Do you hear what I'm saying to you?
Yeah.
When the Legion of Boob had Cam Chancellor and Earl Thomas, they had the greatest safety tandem of that era. He's both.
Wow.
Yep.
Guys, something you had talked about the black GMs and the success that they've had, but what about Washington? a $10 million fine and Dan Snyder is off the day-to-day.
Well,
Is this kind of haven't we seen this kind of play itself out in the NBA without mentioning names?
well, are they going to put like a monitor on his ankle? Like, how is this going to? I mean, I'm just asking.
Look at Don's face. What are you talking about? I'm giving all my time to Don. Don, you can have all my time on this. It's yours, bro. This for
Time out. I missed that scroll. What the hell happened to Washington now? What's the fine for?
So
they're not the Redskins, so it can't be that.
Yeah, they examined the culture around the Washington football team, and this is for bad past acts. This is not really the current regime so much.
Many bad past acts. Chiefly against the female persuasion. The culture of the organization is not conducive to females. And there's pages and pages of examples.
Yes.
And it starts at the top. So they put a
Yep. All the stuff you've heard, and I don't know what you've heard, but they managed to corroborate virtually all of it.
Yep.
Everything from inappropriate statements to setting up certain prominent individuals with opportunities to meet in not exactly appropriate ways, female members of staff, cheerleaders. I mean, just stuff you think, oh, come on, a real football team's not going to do that. They were doing that, right? So the things that you could not happen for real.
They brought the 70s culture back to Washington.
Like cheerleader calendars, topless, just nonsense, just unbelievable nonsense that should not happen. And that's the best way.
Could not happen. Yes,
right. Unbelievable nonsense, and it started at the top. So
yes.
So you're telling me they did less miles?
Yes, very much less miles. Yes.
That's miles shit. Okay.
All of us are old enough to remember a film called North Dallas 40.
That was 40.
Right. There you go. There you go. Go watch North Dallas 40, and it's kind of like that.
Yeah.
Fun Dallas 40, semi-tough. Yeah.
Tough is another one.
Yep. But yeah, fun fact: the guy that plays running back Delmar Hobbs in North Dallas 40, Tommy Riemann, coached Aaron Brooks. He coached Michael Vick and Tyrod Taylor at Minchville High School.
Wow.
He's a high school coaching legend in the state of Virginia, Tommy. He's retired.
There you go, Mike. Another Bill Carroll special. We get 5 to 7 of
those. Just take notes, Mike. You know.
There's my notepad.
If you ever want to play trivia football, make sure that you bring
in
Bill. Your thoughts on the Chargers secondary with that addition, Mike?
Yeah, I think Bill nailed it. I mean, the only thing that I would say, of course, with Derwin is injuries. Can the guy stay healthy? And if he can, then the world is his oyster. So I just hope he stays healthy and shows what he's capable of.
Yeah,
which you can do for almost any member of the Chargers team if he stays healthy.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the thing is a meniscus, they heal. I mean, you can get over a meniscus. Not like it's an Achilles or one of the meniscus can heal and be fine. And just quickly, Bill nailed it, right? He can cover backs, he can cover receivers, he can cover tight ends. He can come down in the box and support the run. He can be used in blitz packages. What he gives them is flexibility. He makes Chris Harris better. He makes the linebacker, Kenneth Murray, makes him better. They can do so much. He's that dude that on Wednesday, the other team is having a meeting. They're like, what are we going to do about that guy? That's the dude they're talking about in the Wednesday meeting is Derwin James. He's that good. Bill's absolutely right. He's that good. So I think it's huge for them. If to Mike's point, if he stays healthy. If he stays healthy, he just makes everybody better.
Mike, who's some of the Chargers we should pick up?
Definitely Justin Herbert. He's going to be in your top 10. He's been being bounced around quite a bit. A lot of people are going, okay, can he have a good a year as he did his rookie year? just mostly based on the fact that when it got to be about week 11, 12, he sort of stabilized and wasn't putting up the same numbers he was all the way up till then. So do the defensive coaches have his number? Do they know what he's going to do? Are they going to box him in? Those kind of things. I'm not worried about it. I think he's definitely, if you can get him anywhere between QB 5 and 7, go for it. Keenan Allen, one of the best route runners in football. Love Keenan Allen. Also, tight end situation, we'll see. There's really not much there now that Hunter Henry left, so we'll see. I think Jared
pick up late, particularly in keepers league. Donald Parham, pick him up late.
You like okay?
I love him. I've loved him since college.
He's 6'6". He's definitely the big dude. I mean, he's 6'6",
and fast.
280, and fast. He's like a Rob Gronkowski type, that's for sure. You definitely could put a flyer on him. See who else. Of course, you got Austin Eckler there as well. He's going to be. You don't expect a lot of touchdowns from him, but he's going to catch a ton of passes.
Yep.
Don, you liked Justin Herbert last year. What do you think about the Chargers?
I think the Chargers are going to be okay. I'm sorry they're not in your neck of the woods anymore, James. I'm sure you're missing that, but I like Herbert. I mean, I really can't say anything bad about their situation, except that they have to go through people like Kansas City and
right.
They're just happen to be in the AFC. If they're in the NFC, I like them a lot better. But
Mike, a team that I didn't ask you about, and according to the Fantasy Wire, they might be one of the worst teams as far as fantasy value. What about the Raiders?
Yeah, I agree. Josh Jacobs used to be the dude. Now you bring in Kenyon Drake, and guess what? You slice a pie, and I think Jacobs had a lot of value because he scored a lot of touchdowns. He did that the last 2 years. He scored 12 touchdowns last year. He was an RB8, and now you have Kenyon Drake, and Kenyon Drake's going to steal some of those, so he'll drop dramatically. Kenyon Drake, another guy, they're just going to be splitting that. So you're looking in the late RB 20s for both of those guys. Who do they have at wide receiver? Henry Ruggs was the first wide receiver off the board last year in drafts, and he disappeared. He was gone. Didn't show up. Made one great catch against the Jets at the end of the game to win, but other than that, did absolutely nothing. Doesn't mean he can't. It's just it's a hard road to go from absolutely zero to some kind of value. Maybe he'll pull a DJ Chark. I don't know. But the only guy you really have there is Darren Waller, and Darren Waller's one of the top 5 tight ends. Maybe Henry Edwards, or is it Harry Edwards? I think it's Henry Edwards. Another guy that they drafted last year. He might be able. We'll see. He was a 2nd round or 3rd round last year, so maybe. But I wouldn't draft him.
Yeah. Okay. The best chance of making a Super Bowl next season. Bill, I'm going to start. Don, I'm going to start with you on this one. Yeah. The Bills, the Browns, or the Titans?
The Super Bowl?
Yeah, I need a 4th choice. None of them.
Yeah.
No, I said who has the best chance. I didn't say who would make it. I said which of those 3 teams has the best chance.
That's like asking who has the best chance to win World War II, the French or the Italians. Okay, so I'm gonna.
All 3 of them made the playoffs last year, Don.
I know, but that's the whole thing. That's different, the Super Bowl. Being AFC just is terrible for those guys. I like guys like Baltimore and KC, but
if you got a 4th one, you can bring it on.
You made a choice. Of those, I would say between the Browns and the Bills, and I give a slight edge to the Bills.
Okay. Now, if you had a fourth one, who would you bring? Who do you think? Of course, I know everybody's saying Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. That's but go ahead, Don.
That's NFC.
Oh, okay, yeah. In the AFC, he mentioned the Ravens, which is a better choice than all three of these, by the way.
Yeah, I like the Ravens.
Okay.
But that was really my problem. I don't know that any of them are going to be Kansas City, but I would take the Ravens over all three of these guys.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
But the three you gave me, I'd give a slight edge to the Bills over the Browns, and I do like the Browns. I mean, I like what they're doing, but I think they just might be another year away.
Yeah.
You guys are giving the Browns awful lot of love. You do see that sign, right?
I'm not. I agree with Don. I think of these three, the choice is Buffalo. Buffalo's got the best quarterback. They got Stephon Diggs. They got the better defense. Of these three, the choice is the Bills, like Don said.
Yeah, it came to the defense for me, so that's why I gave them the slight edge.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm not giving the Browns anything. I don't buy the Browns hype. I've never bought the Browns hype. They have to prove it to me. And I think this league often is about the quarterback. And I just think Buffalo is a better quarterback than Cleveland. And they have a better defense, like Don said. So if you got both of those, yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're up for the extension, right? Okay. Anyway, Bill, your thoughts on these three?
So it sounds did the three change? Because I heard the initial group of teams. I heard a bunch of different teams.
No, we added a fourth. We just added the Ravens to the group.
I gave you the Bills, the Browns, and the Titans. You can add in. You can add in anyone else you want to. If I'm sticking with that group,
I'm going to actually go with the Titans. One is I think that they have a slightly easier road. I have to go back and look at the schedule. But I think they play an easier schedule, if memory serves it correctly, than the other two.
I see Mike twitching over there, right?
Yeah, I'm like, no,
they don't. Okay.
No, they play his Colts. Who probably will win that division. That's just his hat twitching. That's all.
Oh, right. Sorry. Yes. What was I thinking? But there are things that I like. One is they are built differently than the way most teams are built, which means that teams are not built to play them. Right? Most teams are built to play teams that don't care that much about running the football. They're one of three teams that ran the ball. I think, and once again, Mike probably knows this, I think only three teams ran the ball over 47.5%. And they're one of the three last year. I think that's right. Nobody is over like 50% anymore, which is such a freakish thing to me because I'm old enough to remember when like everybody was 58, 59, 56, 53. Like even the Air Coryell teams were like 53% run. People don't realize how different football is from when I grew up watching it. Nobody was over 50. I think there's only been 2 or 3 years in the history of the game where nobody was over 50%. Even the Titans who run the ball and the Ravens who run the ball were still below 50%. Run pass. They were still both slightly weighted towards pass. But they still run the ball a lot for now. And they run the ball hard, right? They're not just running the ball, they're running the ball painfully. And most teams aren't built for that. So late in the season, you're already sore as all get out. You can barely sleep at night because you don't feel decent until, God forbid you have a Thursday night game, but it takes you till Thursday to feel halfway decent because you're beat up. It's week 14 or 15. And here comes the Titans. Like, that's no fun. That sucks. So I feel like they're a team that could make a deep run in the playoffs. The things that concern me about them, they didn't rush the passer at all practically last year. But I don't think they can be that bad again. They've added pieces, obviously, to the pass rush. So they have more talent devoted to that than they've had in recent memory. I know it's something they focused on. So if they could at least be an average defense with a team that possesses the ball more than most teams on offense, and they can get explosive plays. And we just talked about their wide receiver core a second ago, and they mostly still want to run the football at you a lot. you're going to get daggered on play action a lot. They're going to get some deep shots on play action. That's a team that can get on you. So I'm going to pick them of the original three. I'm going to try to stick to the actual assignment, Dave. So I'm going to take of the actual teams you gave us as choices. I'm going to take them.
Can I give Bill a quick follow up though?
Sure.
You don't think Julio impacts that percentage you're talking about?
I think that he doesn't so much change the number of passes. I think he changes the types of passes. I think that means that he's going to take some of the load off of – not that Julio's a possession receiver, don't get me wrong, but at this point in his career, he can still get away from people, but he's not quite – nobody's who they were 5 or 6 years ago.
Sure.
Except Arthur Brown Jr., who might kind of be who Julio was 5 or 6 years ago. So now that guy, instead of running that dig, he's running the post, and Julio's running the dig.
Right.
I think they're still going to have roughly the same percentages, and you can play this back later and go like an idiot. But I think they're going to be close to the same percentages run pass. I just think you're going to see more deep shots. That's what I think.
Okay. Cool.
Mike, you can include your Colts in here if you'd like.
Get him, Mike. Get him now.
I would love to include my Colts in this. Oh, yeah. But I can make a case for the Colts, but I disagree with Bill on the Titans. I just don't think they're offensive wise. He's absolutely correct. But there's two things with Derrick Henry that I'm kind of concerned about. Number one is the fact that the dude has had 700 touches in the last 2 years, and I'm quite concerned about that. Now, Derrick Henry, he's a different kind of – he's a beast, and if anybody can buck sort of that trend of having that many carries and still perform at a 16-game, 17-game level, it's Derrick Henry. But I think what they're going to do is do what they did like with Ezekiel Elliott in Dallas and just pull back the reins a little bit and throw a little bit more. And I think that's where Julio Jones will be more active because they're going to open that up because they're going to not have Derrick Henry carry nearly 300-something times. But I just don't think that defense is good enough to win a Super Bowl. I really don't. They've gotten better, but they're just not there. I like the Bills. I think they were close last year, and if anybody can beat the Chiefs, it's going to be the Bills. The Colts have gotten the Chiefs the last 2 seasons too, regular season, but they've shown to beat them in the last 2 years as well. So if the Colts and Chiefs play, I might have to give my homerism over to the Colts.
Give us some fantasy rankings there. Quarterbacks, running backs.
For which team?
All three.
All three. So Tennessee, you definitely have Julio Jones and A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown is probably top 13 wide receivers, top 14. Julio Jones is in the 20s. Derrick Henry, you have is an RB 3 to 5. I like him more to the 5 range just because those touches concern me. I have him like at RB7 right now, but that's if you put him at RB7, the Bill's correct. You're just not going to get him there. But I just don't like him this year. So realistically, RB3 if you're going by ADP, RB3 is Derrick Henry, and then Ryan Tannehill, he's top 12, anywhere between 10 and 12, if not higher. Depending on if they do open up the throwing a little bit, I think top 7, and he can run the ball too, so that's important. As far as Cleveland, you have Baker Mayfield, top 20 in there somewhere, 15 to 20. You can just whatever with him. OBJ, I'm not drafting him. He's wide receiver 35, 40 to me. Jarvis Landry, he's not an 80 reception receiver anymore. So he's in like the 40-45 range. Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb is where it's at. Those are the guys that you're going to get in the top 15. Nick Chubb is definitely top 7 running back overall. So that's Tennessee, Cleveland, and Buffalo. You have, of course, the quarterback, Josh Allen, top 5. You have Stephon Diggs, top 5. Emmanuel Sanders, I'm not really in favor of. Gabriel Davis, I like more of a fantasy dynasty than
keeper.
a rate draft.
Yeah, he's good for keeper.
For sure. And then
how do you feel about Dawson Knox?
I think there's just too many weapons for Dawson Knox. I think the way they have with Emmanuel Sanders and Gabriel Davis being sort of intermediate, that's just going to wipe out Dawson Knox. But if, they get rid of Emmanuel Sanders, so more down the road Dawson Knox kind of situation. I like him as a tight end, but just too many mouths to feed there. Running backs, Zach Moss and Devin Singletary, they're 28, 30 kind of guys. They're not worth much. So, yeah, if you're going to in the top 10, definitely Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs.
Okay, gentlemen, I know we haven't had any definitive word, and I was hoping we'd have some by the time the Sports Crib started tonight. But unfortunately, we still don't know the situation with Aaron Rodgers. Mike, I'm going to let you start on this because this not only makes a big impact on the team, but I think it also makes a big impact on the fantasy value of some of the players of the team.
Sure.
So why don't you tell us what happens to Green Bay if Aaron Rodgers ends up in Denver?
Ooh. Oh, wow. So Jordan Love would be the starting quarterback for Green Bay, more than likely. I think they brought in Blake Bortles, but I don't see Bortles being the starter there. I think they go with Jordan Love. Devontae Adams, of course, no more top 5 wide receiver. He's probably in the 12, if not past range, without Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Jones, you'd want to push up a little bit because they're going to run the ball more. And A.J. Dillon, you're going to want to push up a little bit more because they're going to run the ball. So those two guys will get a boost. Devontae Adams falls off a cliff.
Yeah. Don, what happens to you? What happens without your boy A-Rod?
What?
What happens to Green Bay without A-Rod?
Green Bay will be a middle of the pack team, maybe toward the end, but I can't see Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers ever reconciling. It could happen, but I think the longer this goes on, the more hard feelings are developed, and I'm thinking we just might see a new team for him next year. So, like I said, I thought they would have some kind of resolution by now, but it's not going to happen apparently. And, I just don't see him playing in that frozen tundra up there.
Demetrius?
So y'all know what y'all doing to me, right? I know y'all know what y'all doing, right? So I'm going to try and keep my head on here and talk about this objective. There's really only 3 options, and not even 3, right? He could do a COVID opt-out, except then that's permanent. You can't play for anybody next year. Once you do that, that's not going to happen. The guy's never said he doesn't want to play. He could retire, same answer. The guy's never said he doesn't want to play. He doesn't want to retire. That's a leverage play. The reality is, I think either I stole it from Bill or maybe it was originally mine. Might have been mine. This story is a relationship-based story. This ain't about football. This is about relationships. And I think the analogy I used was when they drafted Jordan Love, they looked at their wife and said, I ain't really feeling you anymore. You ain't really look. So remember that new car I was going to buy you to help? No. I moved in my mistress. She's in the guest room and she's got your car money. So you're going to, and so he's walking by every day, seeing the mistress sitting over there laughing. He's being nice to the mistress. Then he's like, you know what though? I'm going to put on my best dress and some lipstick and go out win the MVP and remind you who you married. Now, what do you want to do with the mistress? And that's all he's doing. And he's doing it in the best way because he has said almost nothing. Everything you heard, he has said, he speaks in very, very passive aggressive. like almost like soliloquies of beautiful mystery and unknown. He's brilliant. He plays. My in-laws are Packers fans, so I don't dislike him as much as I should, but I'm thrilled because I think he'll have a great season in Denver, and I think the Packers are gonna go 6-10-1. And this is going to expedite the rebuild of my favorite football team. So to me, that's 2 more games we're going to win next year, and because the Jordan Love era is not going to be that great. So I'm excited. I'm very happy. I can't wait for him to land in Denver and put on that orange uniform.
Go ahead, Bill.
The one thing I can tell you, and when I say tell, what's the word I guess I'm saying, and I don't know if you came up with the analogy or if I came up with the analogy, but we've agreed on the analogy that, especially since they don't have, well, they have tens of thousands of owners, I guess. Whatever. But when Aaron Charles Rodgers thinks about his life,
You'll learn a lot of middle names here.
Yeah, we do a 3-name thing. We like to do a 3-name thing, Mike. Just letting you know.
He's been in the league 18 years, and I had no idea his middle name is Charles. So.
Welcome to the Sports Crib, Mike.
I love it.
When he looks at his life, he thinks I've had a pretty good life, right? I think that there's some things he maybe would change, but we all know that he's a person that has lines. Right? And he doesn't cross certain lines. Right. If you cross certain lines with him, that's it.
It's a wrap.
Ask his parents. So ask his brother. So he's not a guy who's very, wishy-washy. That's not who he is. He's very, this is where the line is. And something happened. I don't think it's all Jordan Love, though Jordan Love clearly was part of the process, but something else happened, I believe. And I don't think it's Coach LaFleur. I think he wishes he could somehow extract Coach LaFleur from this situation. I think those two people, I believe, like each other. But I believe that Mark Murphy is not getting a Christmas card this year from Aaron Charles Rodgers. And something happened in their relationship. And unless Mark Murphy says, oh man, like going back to the Demetrius Bridges analogy, I don't know what I was thinking. I'm going through a lot of pressure at work. What can I do to make it up to you, right? I think it is repairable, but it would take 2 very stubborn individuals. One of the 2 very stubborn individuals will have to swallow a lot and go hat in hand.
Did we just go cribbing after dark there?
Probably. But Bill, you've used one word consistently to describe him. Consistently. It's petty.
Yes. Oh, he's ultimately very petty.
He's Petty Murphy. He's Petty LaBelle. He's all the petties. He's super petty, man.
He's Petty LaBelle. I like that.
I talked about my theory. Mike, you weren't here, but I talked about I have a theory called the pettiness of greatness.
Yes.
Michael Jeffrey Jordan is, of course, at the very. He is on
Mount Rushmore. Mount Rushmore.
He's on the Mount of petty greatness, right? And I talked about others who could certainly be on that same, including Thomas Edric Patrick Brady Jr., who has to go on that. He still gets upset. Legitimately upset, right? He's had the greatest career of any quarterback in the history of history. He still is upset about where he got drafted. He's never going to get over it. So Aaron Charles Rodgers doesn't like slights. Right? For those who aren't aware of this, he's not into slights. Not something he's into. And if that slight goes unanswered, you never said, oh man, I'm sorry. I don't know. Once again, what I was thinking, right? There's no bottle of wine, no box of chocolates, no bouquet of roses. If you're just like, hey, it's business, right? If that's your approach, you are not going to, once again, he's not going to put on that dress. He's not going to put on that lipstick. He's not going to get his hair done, get his nails done. There'll be none of that. And I know we always talk about money because money is important, and he would like more money. But I really think what he really wants is somebody to come and do a little groveling. And if there's no, I mean, he would definitely like more money too. But I think he really would like some groveling. And if Mark Murphy wants him to play for them, he needs to straight up grovel. Like, no pride, none of that. Just straight up grovel. Debase yourself. I mean, I'm just trying to let you a little glimpse into the mind. I really think he would be very satisfied by some full-on debasement of
a full-page ad in the back of the USA Today, the whole 9 yards, all of it.
The whole right. And I think he would come back and play like a absolute maniac.
Yes.
Right? Because once again, he's trying to show you this is what you could have, right? But yeah, somebody's going to have to come all the way down off of their high horse.
Yes.
And if that's not what's going to happen, then he doesn't play.
Mike, just a little bit for shits and giggles here. What happens if the Broncos do get Aaron Rodgers? How does that increase their fantasy value?
It goes to the roof. I mean, Jerry Jeudy, who's probably a wide receiver 35, is probably now a wide receiver 20. Cortland Sutton, who's probably a wide receiver 20, is probably in the wide receiver 10. Then you have Javonte Williams, who I liked later in the year. He's good. I mean, we're talking about playoff teams or teams that could win the Super Bowl. I mean, it would be really, really difficult for the Broncos to go from a non-playoff team to a Super Bowl team, but they have a very, very solid defense. Yeah. And then you throw Aaron Rodgers as the signal caller. I might be very tempted of putting some money down on that Denver Broncos going to that Super Bowl.
Where do you have Noah Fant right now? And where would you have him then?
Noah Fant would definitely go up as well. I have Noah Fant about QB, tight end 8. I would say he's definitely in that tight end, that 5 fringe area.
Going in that top group then, right?
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that'd be awesome.
Don, how much better do you think the Broncos would be with Aaron Rodgers?
Oh, light years. I mean, they went from last year to a game where they had like a corner or a wide receiver, someone running the place.
Barista at Starbucks was playing quarterback.
There you go. They go from that to having, one of the top 2 quarterbacks in the game today. So, I mean, that would be like, bringing, a 22-year-old Michael Jordan and put him on the Spurs. I mean, that'd be awesome.
I was afraid to make it about the Spurs. I love that. I love that. That is awesome.
He worked the Texas.
That was cold for I'm ready to talk about the NBA.
I'm just making analogies, guys.
Oh man!
Don't read anything to that. Do not read anything to that other than I just made an analogy.
Mike, you down for a little NBA?
I'm down for it. I probably won't be able to talk too much about it just because my mind is off football. I haven't really been an NBA guy since the Kings and Lakers, but if you guys want to talk NBA, I'd love to listen about it for sure.
I will. Don, since you kind of threw the Texans in there, what's the status of Becky Hammond?
Well, but before I do that, just let me tell Mike, I don't know shit about basketball either. I just play along like I do to keep like a token white guy on the show. So
we need our white brothers. We need our white brothers.
No, but yeah. So Spurs. There's actually hasn't been a whole lot of talk about what the future of Becky Hammond or Tim Duncan for that matter, or Popovich. I mean, I keep expecting to hear that he's going to retire. He's going to retire. I'm thinking if there's going to be any movement in that area, it'll be after the finals. That way, people can start, lining up their ducks and all that. I just don't see Popovich being coaching the Spurs next year. I can see him being in the front office because he does have a GM experience. He works real well with R.C. Buford, so that's a good thing. But I just don't know if he has the energy or passion to do the actual day-to-day coaching. And we saw that some this year where he would, he's good for, throwing the F-bomb at a ref, getting ejected and say, okay, Becky, it's all yours, or Tim, it's all yours. I mean, he's good about that. He'll go in the locker room and have a bottle of wine with his, but I think Becky Hammond, when the NBA announces their first female head coach, I think it will be Becky Hammond. If nothing else, because there's no one else. I mean, with that type of experience. But we'll see how that goes.
Demetrius, I know you were heartbroken last week that you couldn't get here after we had the lottery. And guess who won?
Yes.
Your Detroit Pistons.
Yes.
So, what does that mean for Detroit? You already have, I think you have a great young nucleus already.
Yeah.
So, what does that mean for the Pistons season and for their future as far as that goes? Let's see, who was it? Well, you give us a little preview of what you think that number one pick means.
Sure. So it is. It's a really good time to be a fan of Detroit sports teams in general. By the way, the hockey team, in case you guys don't know, the Red Wings are really doing a good job of rebuilding. Quiet as it's kept, the Tigers are doing a really good job. But you guys know these two teams, the one we've been talking about over my shoulder, and the Pistons are doing it really, really well. And last year, Troy Weaver, the one-year GM, came in and revamped the roster. By the end of this season, there was one player still on the team from the team he came to a year ago. He overhauled the roster. He killed last year's draft. Two of his draft picks were on the all-rookie team, Sadiq Bey and Isaiah Stewart. The third, the number 7 pick, Killian Hayes, combo guard, was injured. But he played so well in his last 8-10 games that right now what you had a great signing in a guy named Jeremy Grant. Came over from Denver. Denver didn't appreciate how good he was. I think you had a really, really smart second-round pick in a guy named Saban Lee, as well as a French guy who's coming along named Sekou Duboye. They have a good young nucleus, like you said. But what we don't have is that superstar. What the lottery does. See, in Detroit, we don't have that avenue that most teams have, which is going to free agent. You have a bunch of money. Hey, LeBron, hey, great player, come play in Detroit. It doesn't work like that. That's not it. So when you're the Pistons, the way you get the great player is you get incredibly lucky or you win the lottery. Like literally and figuratively, you win the lottery. Now, if Cade Cunningham is that guy, this is easy. Just call his name. Don't make this complicated. You answer the phone, but you only take calls from 2 area codes, 713 and 216. That is Houston and Cleveland for those whose area code game isn't as strong as mine. Though you're not dropping lower than 3 because you love 3 players. Evan Mobley at the top, and Bill can disagree with me and tell me if I'm wrong. He's Chris Bosh at like his ceiling is Chris Bosh like.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah.
If I could go back to 2003 and not draft Darko Milicic, could have drafted Chris Bosh. But we're not going to do that after dark because that would be after dark. The much shorter answer.
That's not even after
real
dark.
darkness,
Pure
right?
darkness.
And there's a kid named Jalen Green who just, like Bill and I like to say, gets buckets. He gets buckets. The kid can score. We don't have that right now. We got a shooter in Sadiq Bey. We got bigs, and quietly Mason Plumlee still has some game. And Isaiah Stewart is Ben Wallace 2.0. We shoot free throws. They're doing something really good here. I appreciate you letting me talk about it a week late, by the way. Right now, I would say, unless somebody comes and offers you the world, and it has to be like, we'll drop back to 3 to Cleveland, and we'll give you another good player, Colin Sexton, and some picks, something like that, I will answer that phone call. I'm not talking to OKC. I don't care how many picks you have. That's too far back. I'm not going back to 7. My hope is just draft Cade Cunningham and let this be easy, because now you got a Killian Hayes, Cade Cunningham backcourt. You got up front Sadiq Bey, Jeremy Grant, and Plumlee Stewart combination. You got Josh Jackson coming off the bench, Frank Jackson. You have built a team that next year is going to be in the Eastern Conference playoffs. And in 2 years, if we keep doing what we're doing, we are Utah. We're Phoenix. We're those teams. If Cade Cunningham becomes that dude kind of guy. So it's a good young roster. They're building it the right way. And I'm obviously thrilled they won the lottery. That's great for us.
So in 2 years, we will have a Super Bowl champ and an NBA champ in Detroit.
Yeah, and watch out for the hockey team. Stanley Cup. There's a room for Stanley Cups in Detroit, Michigan. There's a bunch of them in there. So we like Stanley Cups also.
Yeah, this might be a first, a black guy talking hockey on the Sports Crib. I got
Detroit is called Hockey Town. Black people in Detroit like hockey.
Yeah,
it's legitimate. Black people in Detroit like hockey. The Red Wings are that big a deal.
Yeah.
I have a question for you, Demetrius. I know the Warriors have 2 first-round picks. Would they? How would that work out to get that first pick of the draft from Detroit? I would assume they would have to send both first rounders and maybe a player
and Wiseman. Yeah.
So
it's going to take Wiseman and both of those picks for me to have a conversation. Yeah, that's the number one pick. It's going to take that. Okay. I mean, I like Wiseman that much. I think his upside is still there. I don't know that they were entertaining that conversation, but if you're asking me what would it take for I think Troy Weaver to even engage in that conversation, I'm going to need both of those picks and Wiseman. We can talk.
Okay.
Because they pick what, 7?
I like 7 and 14.
7 and 14, yeah. 7, 14, and Wiseman might get it done. Yeah.
I like Wiseman. I don't think that they're going to give him up, but
but if you're the Pistons and you have the number one pick, you have to ask for that. You have to demand something outrageous because you don't just give it up for nothing. But even if you're Golden State, you need Wiseman. You got Cade Cunningham and you bring Klay Thompson back. That might not be a horrible deal for them. They still have Draymond. They still have players on that team. You can add Cade Cunningham to that group. I don't know, but if somebody from Golden State calls Detroit, you're going to start with Wiseman and those 2 picks.
Yeah, and they still play out west. So, Bill, what do you think about the Blazers hiring Chauncey Billups? And do you think that's enough to keep Damian in Portland?
I think it could help, but if Damian Lillard is saying, "Man, my back hurts from carrying this franchise," I don't know if Chauncey Billups by himself is going to change that. Yeah. What will change that is that team starts to look like a team that he won't have to carry anymore. Right. That's what I think would change that. So, I mean, Chauncey Billups is like a nice window treatment, right? Oh, wow, look at these windows. But if the house is still on fire, it's hard to appreciate the window treatment. So if they can prove to him, hey, we fireproofed the house, now you might be able to hold on to Dame. I think Dame wants to stay there. I think he wants to retire out there, but he also would like to win some rings. So you got to make him believe you don't have to leave to get a ring. If they can convince him of that, then yes. But Chauncey Billups by himself with no other changes? No.
What do you think, Don? You like Damian? Do you think he's going to stay in Portland?
Well, like Bill was saying, when you had that situation, he made an analogy about the fire and the house treatment. To me, having Chauncey come in, and again, I talked about football. I alluded to earlier about how a change of scenery is good, and sometimes you got to shake up things. I think that works with Portland. I think having a new coach and bringing in some of his players, his philosophy to work it in. I think he'll stay. I think I don't expect them to win a title or anything because they're still in that freaking West. But I still think that they'll be a little bit more competitive than they have been.
What do you think, Demetrius?
And I'm a Chauncey Billups fan, by the way.
Nice. So, Mike, clue you in here. This is a situation that happens on the show when you have to go after Bill. The strategy is simple sometimes. just start off by saying Bill was right, and then repeat all the shit he said. Right? That's the strategy. Don't get cute. Don't get creative. Right?
Hey, so sometimes it's just repeat all the shit Demetrius said too. I've been known to do that.
When you're going after Bill, don't get cute. Don't get creative. You don't need to. He will do all the work for you. Dame is that dude. We've talked about guys we call that dude. Yep. That dude is all about winning. This is a nice step. Like Bill said, Dame's about winning. The GM's got more work to do. He's got to put talent on that roster to give Dame the impression that they can compete. And like Bill said, that's it. Dame will stay because you don't get that emotional unless you give a damn. Dame loves Portland. He loves the organization, he loves the city and the fans. He wants to win in Portland. Yep. It's a hard thing for an athlete to go, I'm just going to give up here and go somewhere else. He wants to win in Portland. So the GM needs to hiring Chauncey was great because Chauncey's guys like Chauncey. I love Chauncey, right? He's a Piston, right? But for Dame, it's about winning. The Chauncey hire isn't keeping Dame. But the GM should be smart enough to know that wasn't his goal to keep Dame by hiring Chauncey. You need to get talent around Chauncey. Give him a shot. I mean, around Damian. Give him a chance to win rings, and he'll stay because I think he loves it there.
Do you got any thoughts on Damian, Mike?
I know the name. I know, but I couldn't tell you what team he played for or anything. I know he's good. At least I hear his name a lot, but that's about all I know about Damian.
I just tried to tell you how to do it. All you had to do is say, I agree with Bill. I agree with everything.
I agree with Bill, and I agree with Demetrius, and I agree with Donald.
That's the easiest way to do it.
We do have some talent, Mike, so you can defer if you want. So.
Hey, if we start talking hook 'em horns, just be quiet and say, I cede my time to the gentleman from Texas, and Don will take it away. I will never comment on them horns. I'm passing it off to Don in a heartbeat.
I see that you're wearing that state shirt, though, Demetrius. Me and you have to talk because I'm all about the Wolverines.
Oh, God. This is going so well. It's going so well.
Guys, Kemba Walker goes to OKC. And I guess if you've read this question, you kind of know what I'm insinuating here. Is OKC the place where good players go to die or get traded? Demetrius, you can start.
Yeah, both. Sometimes both. Sometimes you die and you still get traded. No. So I don't really know what they're doing in Oklahoma City. I'm gonna hope Bill helps me here. I'm gonna give you my impression because they have 18 first-round picks in the next 7 drafts.
Yeah,
that is not a light statement, guys. That is some unprecedented record-setting nonsense because it's meaningless. They've just been accumulating picks. Kemba Walker may or may not be a nice man. I don't really know a lot about him. I know that I'm 52 years old and I'd take my knees over his knees. By all accounts, my knees are probably in better shape, and I put in 10 years of baseball, little league, high school, and college. I would take my knees over his knees. The strategy, he will be traded. So let me answer the question. Sorry, as Bill said, let's stay to the script. He will be traded. He'll be traded before the season starts. He won't be an Oklahoma City Thunder when the season starts. That's what Sam Presti, the GM of the Oklahoma City Thunder, does. He's about collecting draft capital. At some point, you need to convert those draft picks into real players who can help your team win games. Because it's cute to look on a piece of paper and look at all those draft picks. They don't mean anything. They don't mean and honestly, it's not as easy as I'm making it sound. He could call and offer the Pistons 10 picks, and I don't know that we do it for that number 1 pick because the NBA is a different league. It's not like the NFL. The NBA is a different league. Those picks are just figments of art. It's like Kaiser Sose. Those picks are nothing. I don't. Cade Cunningham's a real player, and he can be a Piston in 2 months. So I don't know what Sam Presti's trying to do, collect the most picks in the history of the league. To the point, Kemba Walker is a solid player, but he's getting paid superstar money, and therein lies the problem. He makes a lot of money. He makes superstar money, and he's not a superstar. Doesn't mean he's a bad guy. He's actually a good player. But when in the NBA, you're trading contracts. Forget about the guy's name. Forget about his knees. You're trading contracts in the NBA, and good luck finding somebody to take that contract off your hand. They took him because they got draft picks with him, and their guy loves draft picks. So he will be traded. Somebody will take him off because he'll help a good team as a role player, even though he's going to crush their salary cap. So Oklahoma City is the place where good players go. It's Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. And I would like to give Don like a few minutes to just talk about how he feels about Oklahoma. That would be great. That would be great for us, Cribbing After Dark.
Don and anything Oklahoma is good for
right. I think he's whatever. Anything Oklahoma.
Hey, I'm still pissed about the toll roads up there. So
he really is. He really is.
He is legitimately not happy with that.
But the thing about Kemba Walker, dude, he talk about his knees, talk about whatever. He still puts points on the board. I mean, he still puts points, and so I think he does have draft value. Like if they do go that route, like you're saying, Demetrius. I know some teams in Texas that could use some, 19.9 points a game, something like that.
Right.
So, but yeah, Oklahoma City, when you have, Durant, Harden, and Westbrook, and they're no longer there, and they're winning championships other places. It's just,
Yep.
Says a lot.
Bill?
So here's an enjoyable little statistic. The next highest paid player on their roster is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who makes $4,141,320 a year. So the gap. So the gap between the two is over $30 million difference.
What's Kemba making?
Yeah, Kemba's average per year is $34,379,100.
Can't do it. He's not that good.
So there's a more than $30 million gap between your number one and your number two highest paid players. I'm just going to go on a limb and think that's the biggest gap between 1 and 2 on any roster in the NBA, right? I mean,
Exactly.
I can't imagine there's another team that has that. So it's a very unbalanced, you know what I mean? Like, he's living in a different world from everyone. And here's another thing that's very different. He's one of 2 players who are over 30 on the whole roster. In fact, there's only 4 players who are 25 or older on the whole team. They've got to be one of the youngest teams in the history of basketball. They have 3 players who aren't legal to buy alcohol on their team. I'm not even joking when I say that. They have another couple of players who can't get a rental car without a cosigner. I'm not even joking. This is a stupidly young team. They have 7 or 8. Let me check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 players who are less than 24. Jeez. That's insanity. And Kemba Walker. So it's a very strange situation where you have this one dramatically older, way overpaid player, and everyone else is a bunch of kids, pretty much, who are making, not league minimum, but, $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, maybe $4 million. And then there's this one guy who's making what everyone else is making put together. So, yeah, good luck with that. My assumption is, they're going to try to move him to a contender. That's what I'd be trying to do. At some point next year, some contender is going to realize they need one more piece, or somebody's going to get hurt or something, and you'll have your opportunity. And, of course, I'm assuming that Mr. Presti's going to try to get some more draft picks because that's his thing. This is going to be, at some point, the youngest team in the history of team sports if this continues, because he's going to get rid of, I guess, him, Kemba, and then probably everyone else who's over 21 and just draft more young guys, I guess. I mean, it's going to be a great U21 team. He's going to feel it. Maybe they can be, I don't know. It's just weird. Rebuilding is cool and everything, but he's doing this like somebody who's taken over, going back to a dynasty. It's like someone who took over a dynasty team, Mike, and they just decided they didn't like how the other person had done it before. They're gonna just get rid of
all the
everything,
pieces.
Right.
Yep.
I'm getting rid of everything. It's just etch-a-sketch it. Shake that etch-a-sketch and start over. That's what it kind of feels like. But Kiffin is literally sticks out like a sore thumb when you look at that roster. It's like a bunch of guys who are playing on low money contracts and a bunch of guys who you kind of sort of heard of, but you can't remember where you heard of them before. And Kemba.
Bill, the Lakers hired Fitzdale as an assistant.
Yep.
Your thoughts? Does this mean that a certain coach might be on his way out?
I don't know if it's that simple.
think so?
I mean, it gives them options, right? I mean, it's you don't do that. You do that for two reasons. One, he's a really good basketball coach. I mean, you're trying to get better. You're trying to always get better. And the Lakers, obviously beyond injuries, and that's the main thing people talk about, even when they were healthy, they weren't as good on defense this year. I don't know if people notice these things anymore because of the way the game is played nowadays, but the difference between this Lakers team and the bubble Lakers team was defensive intensity and defensive consistency. Even though they had some guys who were sort of journeyman-ish, everybody they brought onto that floor last season played their butts off on defense. Even guys who kind of knew they were going to be one and done there played really well on defense. And guys that you wouldn't think you would miss, like Dwight Howard, I shouldn't say you would think you would miss, but I mean guys that you don't think about as like building block players or whatever, but kind of feel like rent a player. But some of those guys really gave some good defensive minutes that they're missing now, quite frankly. So if this deal can help with that, though, once again, this is the NBA, and coaching matters. Don't get me wrong. Coaching always matters. But of all the major sports, well, I mean, baseball, I guess, is also kind of too, but you win with players. I mean, let's just be very clear and honest. It's great coaching helps. A great coach will get you a couple games you probably wouldn't have won otherwise. But even the greatest coach in the world can't make a bad team good or an average team great. I mean, you've got to have really good talent, and they've got to play well together, no matter who your coach is. So when people are blaming coaches, I always kind of, especially in the NBA, I kind of chuckle. Like, okay, cool, that makes you feel better, you know? But outside, yeah, can a coach mismanage the situation and cost you an opportunity to win? Yes, of course. Especially, I mean, bad coaching, yes, can really hurt. But even the difference between bad coaching hurts you more than great coaching helps you, if you've got the right players. I'll put it that way. If you've got the right players, even the worst coaching in the world only hurts you so much because talent wins in the NBA more than anything else. It's talent. I know I sound like a broken record, but I once again, what I say about the Lakers when this team first came together, I was worried about their depth and their, you guessed it, perimeter shooting. I still worry about their depth, and I still worry about their deep shooting. When Seth Curry was on the market, I was like, hey, you might want to, do that Seth Curry thing. I know he's the second best Curry, but he's still a dependable, 3-point shooter. I'm still not sold on this version of the Lakers. I mean, I know it sounds funny to say that because they have LeBron and everything, but at some point, LeBron is not going to be able to play LeBron basketball all the time, right? LeBron basketball is physically demanding, and he's an older gentleman in terms of, basketball terms. He's an older gentleman. He is almost literally old enough to be a father to some of the younger players in the league because guys hit the league so crazy young. He's almost literally at that point in his life where he could be a literal, actual father to some of the guys who are entering the league now, which is crazy to think about because I can remember LeBron was 14 years old. But when your best player is also the oldest or one of the oldest players on your roster, you have to start figuring some other things out. You can't just say, we're going to just ride this guy who's 35? Wait, how old is LeBron?
34, 35, I'm pretty sure.
34, 35. At some point, that guy needs more rest than he used to need. And they don't have a plan B. That I know of, right? Unless I'm missing something. The plan B for if LeBron can't do LeBron things all the time was sort of AD,
Lose is plan B.
That's plan B is lose. Right.
Get knocked out of the playoffs by Phoenix.
There you go. That's exactly what plan B is. Because once again, as much as I love the move of getting AD, I said this before. AD is a guy that misses games. I mean, that's who he is. And you have to, when you build a team around Zion Williamson, I mean, not that he's a young player, who knows, but it feels like you have to sort of think of that the same way as you're building around AD. Like, this guy's going to miss some games. Yeah. And you can survive that if your second best player misses some games, if your first player is in his prime. LeBron's prime is probably ending. I mean, once again, he might pull a Tom Brady or whatever, and have, a pride that just keeps going on and on, but I don't think so. Basketball's different because you have to actually run and jump. And
like you said before, though, coaching in basketball is different. The job of an NBA coach is managing superstar relationships.
Yep.
You manage your superstar. Your superstar manages the glue guys. The glue guys manage the role players. That's the job. Go look at Phoenix. Talk to Monty Williams. He figured it out. He built a relationship with Chris Paul and Devin Booker. Chris Paul and Devin Booker manage everybody else. Yep. Now, does Monty Williams know X's and O's? Of course. Frank Vogel knows X's and O's.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Fizdale is a relationship manager. He has a reputation as that. That's what this is. If they start off slow in their first 20, Fizdale's your head coach. LeBron is, as Monty Williams called Chris Paul, an extension of the head coach. That's going to be the new hot term. He's a head coach on the floor. That kind of nonsense. Yep. That's all NBA coaching is. If you know X's and O's, great. You can get a job. If you know how to manage relationships and you know X's and O's, you understand superstars in that league, you can win. And ultimately,
knows X's and O's inside
crazy.
But the reason Scott Skiles is not a high value target as an NBA head coach anymore is because people realize, superstars don't like Scott Skiles.
Right. Even though he went to Michigan State. So
that's why he went to Michigan State.
Is that
why? Demetrius, we've had several conversations about Ben Simmons. Do you think that there's talk about trading Ben Simmons here, trading Ben Simmons there, but if your guy can't shoot, are you really going to put him in the West?
It doesn't matter. So here's the thing. We talked earlier about Kemba Walker, right? In that league, the contract matters, right? And I have to quote Bill again. A couple of weeks ago, he made it sound really funny. In that league, one important thing you need to be able to do is shoot the basketball. Ben Simmons can't shoot. He can't shoot. So your question is he a liability in the West? He's a liability anywhere. Anywhere. As talented as the kid is, and he's very talented in a lot of other ways, he can't shoot, and everybody knows it. So you almost can't have him. You certainly can't have him on the floor at crunch time because it's going to foul him, and he's going to miss free throws.
Yep.
It is sad, but it is also an opportunity. It's really sad if it's simply that the kid's actually right-handed. And he's been shooting. That would just be bizarre if it turns out he's right-handed. But he's just got to get in the gym and shoot. It's not much more complicated. He's got to be able to consistently knock down 18-foot jump shots. If he can do that, he doesn't have to be a three-point shooter. I don't need him to shoot 40% from three. I need him to be able to knock down an open 18-foot jump shot and a 15-foot shot with nobody standing in front of him at the free throw line. That's all I need him to do. He does that. He's a superstar. Because he does everything else exceptionally well. If he had a consistent 18-foot jump shot, he's one of the best 10 players in the league. And it's actually that simple. I don't know how you trade him because he's got a big contract and he can't shoot.
Well, Mike, as you already see, we're right on time. It's 8:00, and
James has some imaginary 10 o'clock deadline that we have never hit. We've never come close to hitting this thing. I mean, it's 10 o'clock in the Central Time Zone. He's out west. We don't even know why he gives a damn. He's on the West Coast. He can stay up another 3 hours. We're all. I assume. I don't know if you're in Indy or just an Indy fan. I think all four of us are in the Central Time Zone. He's on the West Coast. Why does he care?
Me and James, I think, are in the same. You're in California, right, sir?
Yeah, I'm in San Diego.
So I'm about 5 hours north of you. I'm in Sacramento.
Oh, good.
Oh, okay.
Look, the podcast ends when Don Hayes says it's time to end. I don't want to hear the West Coast guys telling me they got to go to bed or something. I don't want to hear that. I'm tired.
I'm on summer vacay. I'm good.
When Ranger Hayes tells me the podcast is over, then the podcast is over. Not a moment sooner.
Well, guys, let's talk about this Supreme Court ruling right quick. I didn't include it, but Mike, I'm going to let you start out here. What do you think about this new ruling on NIL by the Supreme Court and the effect that it's going to have on the NCAA?
I like it. I think they should. I mean, why should we tie players down then when they have every right to make money on their name just like anybody else would? I like the NIL. I'm not so much, and maybe I'm just old school, even though it doesn't have to do with it. But I'm not so much about paying players to play. That sort of is not something I'd be for. But I am for this NIL situation. I think they definitely should be able to, if they're popular, be able to sign autographs and do those kind of things because it's who they are. It's just any right as anybody else would have.
Don, are you gonna ask for some retro money?
No. My autograph would have made pretty good toilet paper probably, but no. But all this kind of started if you kind of go back in time. Mr. Johnny Manziel at A&M, he got caught selling autographs, and he was charging $20 an autograph. He had a friend that was kind of brokering, and he ended up, And so what happened? He had that magical season. They beat Alabama, and A&M attendance season tickets for the next year went up like 40-50%. They were able to build a new extension to their end zone. Yep. They have the largest stadium in Texas, believe it or not. Hate to say that, but hate to admit it. But yeah,
it sounded painful as you were saying.
So Manziel pretty much funded the building of that, but he didn't get to see any of that in college, any of that money. He was in the field 2 or 3 years, and he blew that. But I think that money went up his nose or in his veins. I don't think it went to anything else. But so Johnny Manziel was able to kind of start that. How can I can get paid from autograph? And so I just read today that Derek King, the quarterback at Miami, just signed a $20,000 deal to sell his likeness on T-shirts. So it's already going. I know Bijan Robinson at UT. He's got people making stuff for him. So it's going to get real crazy. And if you think about the college game is just mimicking the NFL. I know the Texas fans today were upset because this offensive lineman signed with Oregon. It was between Oregon and Texas, and he went to Oregon. And someone on this message board I belong to said, commitments don't mean anything. He's not signed yet, but even if he does sign, he could be in the transfer portal next year. He could still end up at Texas. So all this emphasis on recruiting and commitments is kind of like, oh, okay. It doesn't really mean anything because I can get in the transfer portal and go here, and it's become free agency is basically what we've seen in college football. Now they're getting paid. So I'm kind of like, Mike, I'm old school. I don't want to see guys getting paid, but, I can only stick my finger in that dike and keep the floodwaters at bay for so long. So I got to adapt to it. Got to adapt.
Yep, that's true.
Demetrius, I won't let Bill take all your thunder. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm going to go a different route. I'll let Bill have all the good stuff. For me, I am, even at 52 years old, a video game geek. This whole thing to me is about the greatest video game that's ever existed.
Oh, I know where you're going with this one.
Right, yeah. Right. And they wiped it off the map, 10 years ago and broke my heart. Yep. And I have an Xbox 360 with the 2011 version of that game, the last one they made. Unfortunately,
was that Denard Robinson?
Denard Robinson's on the cover. Unfortunately, I still have that system in that game for one reason. Go online, create your own university. College football, NCAA college football. This is the reason EA Sports had to stop making the game. And I was heartbroken. This is all I care about. I mean, we can have a deeper conversation about name, image, and likeness. We can. I care about that stuff. But this, for me, is about a video game. I am stoked because the game's coming back. And that's really all it is for me. That's the best news I've gotten in a long time. I think that as much as I don't hate the university in Ann Arbor, but the one story that I always remember is Jalen Rose or Chris Webber, maybe they were together, walking by the store on campus, seeing a jersey with his name, and I think he said it was $100, and he was like, I couldn't afford it. There was no way I could afford to buy my jersey, like my own jersey. He was scraping up money for a meal or something like that. That always landed with me as it doesn't feel right. And I've heard the arguments. I had a guy sit down and break down here's the value of a scholarship. And if you get a degree, your earning potential over your life is exponentially higher. And it means this, that, and the other thing. Great. I'm sorry. I remember when I was in college and saving up my coins because there was a 20 meal plan. Whoever came up with that ridiculousness. And there's 21 meals in a week because we like to eat 3 times a day. So I'm saving up coins all week so me and my friends can chip in and buy a pizza Sunday night or we weren't going to eat. Because I wasn't calling my mother and telling her I blew the money at the bar Thursday. So now I got nothing to eat with on Sunday. So yeah, I remember the 20 meal plan. I remember what it was like to eat ramen noodles. And maybe that's a part of the life experience. But I was not a world-class athlete who was generating tens of thousands, if not millions of dollars for the university. Had I been, Mary would have been up there saying, wait a minute, somebody owed me a few dollars. Mary would have got our cut, but I was not that. So I get it. For me, it's really about a video game. I gotta be honest with you guys. I'm excited about the video game.
Bill, you want to bring us back to reality?
Well, so I'll bring it to Don Hayes. So there was a book called Meat on the Hoof that you might remember. It was written about. Okay.
Yes.
So, right. So I thought you might. People have been finding ways to get money into the hands of players forever. I mean, in the Pudge Heffelfinger days, people were getting money to players somehow, right? I guess it was probably a $5 handshake back in those days. But the idea of saying we can't have money find its way into college sports is like, well, I mean, I'm shocked to find out there's gambling on this institute. I mean, what are you really doing here? The issue is where the money is residing, right? I mean, if I have to hear about, a coach leaving from here to go there, and in addition to his salary and all this other stuff and bonuses, he gets a free house, right, and a car service that picks him up and use of a private jet. Like, where will we find money for this? I mean, there's always money when you want money for something, is what I've noticed in college athletics. If you want money for something, the money is always there.
Yep.
And what people are missing, because everyone's talking about what it would have meant for Jonathan Paul Manziel, what it would have meant for
Sorry, I can go ahead.
Arinthal James Simpson, what it would have meant for all the players in the past. And obviously Reggie Bush tweeted out some things that were interesting today. I think about what it means for people on a rowing team, right, who aren't getting $50 handshakes or whatever kind of handshakes, and who can sign a deal with a local gym, right, and get a little something, right? So now they aren't trying to figure out how to buy a pizza. People aren't thinking about what this means for athletes that are not in the big money sports. And though they might not sign a big deal with Nike, they might, even if it's just, the local fish restaurant or the local whatever it is, they're making connections and making relationships that will help them when they go pro in something other than sports. Now they have a relationship with the local car dealership. Now they have a relationship with the local fish restaurant. Now they have with the local realtor or whoever it is. So that when they are done with their marketing degree or whatever it is, because you were on the rowing team, you're not getting millions of dollars to row, right? So, but you now have these relationships with business owners that you would not have otherwise had because you've been a pitch person or you've been a whatever for them. This is going to have a greater impact than I think people are realizing because everyone's focused on football and basketball. And it'll do things to football and basketball as well. But the biggest impact in terms of changing the life for the athlete is going to be people at small schools in non-revenue producing sports who can now actually, afford a pizza. But like I said, even beyond that, will be able to make these relationships that they would not have had with people who might offer them a job when they get done. Because they got to know this young person because they were, hey, come meet so-and-so at the opening of my rug store, or whatever the heck it is. And now this person knows you who owns this business that they would not have known you otherwise. The thing that I always think about is Jeremy Bloom. Everybody remember what happened to Jeremy Bloom? So Jeremy Bloom was a snowboarder. And also Delahaye, the young man who had a monetized YouTube account, who was a kicker for UCF, who ended up having his scholarship taken away because he wouldn't give up his YouTube account. And these are young people who had done really, as far as I can say, nothing wrong. I mean, in the case of Jeremy Bloom, he was just accepting things like appearance fees and things like sponsorships so that he could defray the cost of snowboarding, which is an expensive sport for those who've never snowboarded, because he's traveling, his travel expenses, the equipment.
Hey, Bill, he was an Olympian, wasn't he? Was he going up for the Olympics?
Yeah.
Okay.
But he lost his football scholarship, right?
Yes.
He was
wide receiver.
Yes, at Colorado.
Okay.
But he had to give it up. Yeah, he lost his football scholarship because he wouldn't give up his Olympic dream, right? I mean, how ludicrous is that when there's no problem with Russell Wilson, John Elway, and the long Chud Hedges and a million other quarterbacks and other football players who were baseball players? A.J. Brown, we just talked about a second ago.
Rick Williams.
Right, who made hundreds of dollars, millions of dollars playing minor league baseball, and there's no problem with it. Yeah, have fun, make millions. Like, what the hell are we doing here? How is that okay, but this isn't okay? Mm-hmm. What are we talking about?
That's crazy. Crazy.
Yeah, it's very frustrating. I know for athletes, they've been talking about it for years. So it is very glad to see that there has been a movement, and it should be interesting to see what impact this has during the coming years.
What I find interesting about all that, guys, is that that's the one thing that's happened, I guess, in national politics that I think left and right, conservatives, liberals, Democrats, Republicans all kind of agree on. Give these guys their money,
Yeah.
It's kind of one of those universal things that, hey, yeah, they deserve it.
Any final thoughts on that, Mike?
No, I think what Donald said was pretty true. I think of all the things that, how separate our country's been over the last, 4 years plus, we finally had a bipartisan agreement on something that should have been a long time ago. So I think, it's very cool to see us finally coming together in some kind of way. So that was pretty cool.
Well, guys, Chris Paul finally gets he makes it to the finals after 13 years, and ironically, he does it on the court where he didn't have a whole lot of success, but he was a Clipper for, I believe, about 6 or 7 years, and now he wins his trip to the finals in the Clippers arena. Don, you've talked about Chris Paul and his career, and you had a lot of good things to say about him at Phoenix. How excited are you to see Chris Paul finally get to the finals?
Well, when you chip at the old rock for years and years, and you get toward the end of your career, and all of a sudden you're there. No matter what you're feeling about CP3. I mean, I like him, but I mean, it's good to see him finally reach that point to where he can say, "I can get that ring." He's just a series of ways. So, hats off to him. He's fun to watch. So, he's he is, like I said, about to achieve a dream come true. So we'll see how it works out. But I like Phoenix. I've always been a kind of closet Suns fan as far as the West Conference goes. So hopefully they can pull it off.
Demetrius.
Yeah, I'm happy for him. I've been a fan of his. I think we called when the playoffs first started. All three of us said, I think Phoenix is going to beat the Lakers because the whole conversation was just about healthy Lakers. And I was like, Chris Paul's the president of the Players Association. He is a leader. And we talked a lot about the value of having a real leader because we all agreed that there was talent on that Phoenix roster. And we spent a lot of time talking about what Chris Paul brought. I am a Chris Paul guy. I've been a Chris Paul guy for a long time. So I'm happy for him. There's still work to do. He hadn't gotten it yet. Any nonsense question about his legacy, I'm not here for any of that. I'm not that dude. I'm not here for any of that. You're not going to tell me Charles Barkley wasn't a great player or Dan Marino wasn't a great player. You're not going to tell me Patrick Ewing wasn't a great player or Karl Malone. I get it. That's good talk for the Ford letter. I'm not a fan of that organization, but I'm sorry. Chris Paul is going to moonwalk into the Hall of Fame first ballot, no matter what happens next week, in the next 2 weeks. So I don't want to have that legacy nonsense. I'm not here for any of that. He deserves it. It's well earned. I think he went to that team, and to a man, those young guys, Ayton, Booker, all those guys will tell you the difference maker. The difference maker is Chris Paul, and I think there's something to be said for that. So yeah, I'm happy for him.
Bill?
So I am now put in the position of agreeing with everything that was said by the but let me also say this. A lot of times people will say, this player is a winner or this player is a whatever. There are certainly players who either because of their playing style or their personality or their whatever, even though they're great individual players, are not quote unquote winners. But most great players are winners if they're in winning situations.
Right.
I mean, I don't know how best to put this. The reason we remember some players very differently from the way we probably should remember them is because of the situation that they found themselves in. I'll never forget. I'll go back to a Detroit player. We mentioned Barry Sanders earlier, and he had an amazing career. But there used to be a whole Emmitt Smith, Barry Sanders, banter back and forth about, who's the whatever. And I would say swap their situations, right? Switch the two situations. And would Emmitt Smith still be great? Sure, because he's Emmitt Smith. He'd still be great, but not like Barry. No. He wouldn't have put up Barry's numbers if he played in Barry's situation. Are you kidding me? One of the great blocking fullbacks in the history of the league, right? One of the best offensive lines, certainly in that era. Great coaching talent, right? And an owner who would do whatever it took, right? Who would write whatever check, do whatever. The beginning of free agency, right? Plan B free agency, all this stuff. So you suddenly have the ability to get people like Deion Sanders and Charles Haley. Detroit is at the other end of the world, in essence, in terms of all the resources that were brought to bear for Emmitt Smith around him in his career.
Exactly.
And still, Barry Sanders had a unbelievable career, right? I mean, and I'm not trying to denigrate Emmitt Smith. He was an incredibly tough, talented running back, but he was in a really good situation. I mean, once you get past the first 3 or so years where, and even then the team was getting better, but after that, they were pretty much a dynasty or a team that was in contention every year he was there until he, finishes the last couple years in the desert. Barry Sanders didn't ever have things around him that made his life easy the same way that things were made easier, at least, for Emmitt Smith. There are so many great players that in every sport, right? Name a sport, who just we don't think of them the way we should think of them. We don't realize how great Dick Allen really was, right? Because Dick Allen was never, if Dick Allen plays for the Yankees, or if Dick Allen plays for the Dodgers, if Dick Allen plays, right? We think of Dick Allen as a very different kind of player if he plays for these great teams.
Sure.
He played for the Phillies when it was not a great franchise, and then he played for the White Sox when they were not a great franchise. If you put great players in winning situations, they win. I don't. It's that simple.
Because they're great.
Like,
Exactly. It's that simple.
I mean, there's a few, people who are sort of exceptions, but most great players in winning situations will win. He's finally in a really winning situation.
Yep.
And guess what? He won.
Yep.
Hey.
Makes sense.
Mike, it was really good having you this evening, man. We hope
that
you'll come back. Why don't you give us your final thoughts? Tell people where they can find you on social media. And, hey, man, don't be a stranger. We like your company.
Oh, yeah. Anytime you guys like me to come around, I would love to come around. It was an honor. It was great to hang out with all you guys tonight. Bill, Demetrius, Don, all you guys are great. Sir, thank you very much for inviting me to this. I had a great 2.5 hours. I can't even believe it. 2.5 hours. The time has just flown. So thank you very much. Twitter, RFL Red Zone. Other than that, thank you. And once again, anytime you'd like me to come, I would be more than happy to join you guys once again.
Yeah, and remember, this is only a 2-hour show, so I don't know what other study. Don, my man, summer vacation, we got you here. Give us your final thoughts. Tell us what's happening down there in Texas.
We got a little cool front here in San Antonio. The high today was 87, so I mean, it's usually 100. Usually 107, yeah. So
okay,
I'm just enjoying that. But yeah, it's good to be back with you guys. I'm sorry about Ranger going off earlier. My son went to ring the doorbell
Ranger.
like an idiot.
Ranger's part of the crib family.
Ranger's part of the crib family. Ranger always has something to say about something, so it's fine.
Yeah, he's down here by my feet right now, but. Yeah, so sorry about that, but hey, he's a dog. He's doing his job. He's checking out stuff.
Yeah.
I don't really have any final thoughts. I'm just ready for football season to start back up. I'm going to be in Austin next week, and I'm going to be talking to. I'm sorry, caught my throat. I'm going to be talking to Derek Kurtzbetter, the offensive lineman. In the family, but we're going to go up there and have dinner with him, and I'm going to check out that new turf they're putting down on DKR. So that's all my final thoughts. Just get a chance to go to Austin. Always good.
Okay. Speaking of pets, my cat is here, Chronic. He's down here at my feet. So. Demetrius, your thoughts.
Wait a minute. We're not gonna just get past the fact that you named your cat after a doctor's rate. We're just gonna let it go. We're just gonna let that go. Okay. All right.
Well. Now, just for proof, just to show you that I do have a sense of humor. I do have an all-black cat, and his name is White Folks.
Okay. That's so appropriate. So, all right, cool. Mike, it was. No, you're not. No, you're not. Mike, it was great having you. It was awesome talking fantasy football. I hope you come back. I've been in here for a while now, and I just love it. It's the best part of my week. So I like to use my final thoughts in general, most of the time, like celebrating and recognizing some great athlete. And it's usually like today, somebody's birthday. So today is the 60th birthday of one Frederick Carlton Lewis. If you're not a track and field fan, I get it, right? Yeah. Now, if you're of a certain age, you probably don't know who Carl Lewis is. Sadly, you don't know who Carl Lewis is. But if you were conscious between like 1980 and 1996, you know who Carl Lewis is, right? And I'm a fan of track and field, but and I won't take long. Sheer numbers, like these are the medals in LA in '84. He matches Jesse Owens. And anytime your name can be mentioned next to Jesse Owens, you've done something right. Gold in the 100, gold in the 200, 4x100, and long jump. 4 years later in South Korea, gold in the 100, gold in the long jump, silver in the 200. 4 years later in Barcelona, gold in the 4x100, gold in the long jump. And 4 years later in Atlanta at age 35, he wins the gold medal in the long jump again. It is hard to quantify how when track and field was a big deal, when people in America cared about track and field, he was the male face of track and field. He was the best in the world. He was the guy. He shaved seconds off the 100. He was the guy. Quick Bill Carroll fun fact. The 1984 NBA draft, the Chicago Bulls drafted Carl Lewis with the 208th pick.
Yeah, I had no idea.
This is funny. Why? Because he never played basketball in high school or college.
Really?
Yes. And the Bulls drafted him. That's how incredible an athlete Carl Lewis was. I mean, he can jump, right?
I think Ronaldo Nehemiah got drafted by who?
San Francisco. Oh, no,
49ers.
He played for the 49ers. He played.
Yeah, he played. He actually played, yeah.
He was an incredible athlete. He was actually a pretty good football player. But Carl Lewis turned 60 today, which makes me like, wait, what? Carl Lewis is 60? I got to go back and do some math on myself. But from World Championships to Pan Am Games to Goodwill Games, he's got probably a house just to house all his damn trophies and medals. He was that good for that long. There was never any kind of proven drug use, doping scandal. You know, the stuff they tried, he was cleared of it. Carl Lewis was just an incredible athlete. God occasionally just shows off. Sometimes he just showed, look what I can do. Sometimes God will just do it. Look what I can do. Carl Lewis was a look what I can do. And for like the better part of 20 years, he was the most prolific athlete in track and field. And so I wouldn't have him sing the national anthem.
No,
I don't know if you know that story. I wouldn't have him sing the national anthem for me, but he was a phenomenal athlete and he deserves to be recognized on his 60th birthday. And I'm sure he's somewhere looking fly with a high top fade and a pink jumpsuit or something. But happy birthday, Carl Lewis. He deserves it.
I think the great part about him singing the national anthem was when he said, "Uh-oh."
Right. He knew it. That moment of recognition where it's like, this is a horrible idea. Who told me to do this? Right? He knew it. He knew he was in trouble.
Oh, man. See, you guys almost make me feel young again, but you're talking about a guy 60 years old, so I don't know how that kind of figures out. But okay. Yeah. So that means I was like, what, 14 years old when Carl Lewis did these things.
Yeah.
Some of you so yeah. Bill, I know you are going to put the icing on the cake, so come with it.
I originally was going to talk even more about name, image, and likeness, but influenced at least in part by my friend Demetrius Verdes, and influenced in part by my late father, who was a huge Brooklyn Dodgers fan. I'm instead going to commemorate today, because on this day in 1948, Roy Campanella, a Hall of Fame catcher, and another one of the racial pioneers in baseball, made his debut with 3 hits in a game against the New York Giants. He was a person who would go on to win not 1, not 2, but 3 National League MVPs. He at one point held the record for home runs by a catcher at 38. At one point, he held the RBI record for catchers at 142. If not for his career being cut, though he was in the back half of his career, but being cut short by a car accident paralyzed him from the waist down, who knows? I mean, he still put up good enough numbers with the Hall of Fame, but who knows what kind of numbers he would have finished with. But either way, he had an amazing career, and we use the term beloved figure. Roy Campanella was, in 2 different cities, a beloved figure. He was a beloved figure, obviously, in Brooklyn, New York, and Brooklyn's fans were a unique bunch. Sort of like we talk about the fans of the Eagles, but a little more gentle, a little more jovial with it, though they could obviously be rough on you at times. And then Los Angeles is obviously a very different kind of fan base, but he was loved in both places. And so on this day in 1948, Roy Campanella began a Hall of Fame career, and he was a tremendous human being, along with being a tremendous baseball player. And a lot of times nowadays, when people make lists of the great catchers of all time, he slid down some of those lists, which I think is wrong. I mean, if you've got Mike Piazza ahead of Roy Campanella, you're doing it wrong. Because though Piazza was a terrific hitter, he was really a DH playing catcher.
Exactly.
Roy Campanella was a all-around catcher. He like Pudge Rodriguez, he could, when he was young, he could run a little bit, but he could do it all. He could throw people out. He could call a great game, and he was a tremendous clutch hitter. He was a tremendous catcher. I think one of the 5 or 6 greatest catchers in the history of the game.
Well, guys, I want to thank you guys for, of course, taking time out and talking here on the Sports Crib. I appreciate everybody, and hey, hopefully we'll all be around here next week.
Yes, hopefully. Knock on wood.
Mike, I'll definitely be in touch, man. Because as you can see, we got some fantasy football fans here. You might as well, hey, we might even start a sports crib fantasy football league. We'll see how that.
There you go. Heck yeah. All right. I love that.
All right. So, hey, great talking to everyone. Looking forward to talking to you next week. And as for our audience, we hope that your day wasn't too long. As I always say, we're right on time. So you have a great night, and we'll see you next week right here on the Sports Grid.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Take care.
Good night.